Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace episode 140 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield.
I'm Matt Kyle.
And we are here today to deliver the biggest and the baddest in video games for the week. We have tons of games to talk about again this week. No fluff topics. It's all games pretty much from here on out.
Pretty much, it's the fall.
Well, we are going to talk about the Nintendo Direct. One of the disadvantages of us moving the show to earlier in the week, normally we would have caught that before kind of everyone else talked about it, but I think the Tuesdays for Q4 is probably ultimately for the better.
Yeah, it lines up with the release time, window better, I think.
It does, definitely. So, got a bunch of housekeeping to get to, and some fun stuff before we kick off the show proper. The first thing I want to talk about is the Sifted Fantasy Football League. We have a real fantasy football league going on at Sifted. There's 12 people from Sifted in the league, and we just finished our second week, and I want to give you guys an update on how everything is going. So Sam, bring up the standings. So right now I'm sitting at 2-0, but in third place, because how it works is the teams that score the most points total are higher up in the rankings. So I'm 2-0, but I've scored less than the other two people who are ahead of me, which is Robert Diana, who I have to admit, in our division, his first 2 weeks have been like record-setting. He looks like he's going to be really hard to topple. Sifted Mitch is in second place, and he's just Mitch on Sifted. He's a good fantasy football player. He's been in the league ever since we started it. You see me there in third place at 2-0, which I'm pretty happy with. Shanghai Dan, who you know from Sifted, his Honey Badgers are 0-2. And a lot of these guys were on auto draft, meaning that the computer just drafted for them. So it was kind of inevitable that they're going to start a little slow, but they're starting to get their teams together now. McWomble, you guys all know Keith McWomble. McWomble's, what is it, Wii Masters? Is that what it says? I can't read it. They're in fourth place, or fifth place, and then Wompler's Womblers are in last place in the West right now. In the other division, the number one team right now is Matt Kyle Rules. How do you feel about that, Kyle?
It's all right. I think it says rocks, actually.
Oh, it is rocks, yeah. Matt Kyle
Let's
rocks.
Let's get it right.
So, someone in our league is a big fan of you, Matt, which is awesome. The Ralton and Jets are also at 2-0. And here you can see the other teams in the other conference have lost games to us in the other conference. So they're all sitting at 1-1. 100-yard stare. And Bentley's Blue Bombers. You guys know Bentley. He works on Sifted with us. He does some curation and other stuff. He also has a podcast that runs through the Sifted community channel. Peter Vesti's team. He has never given his team a real name, but on Sifted he is also Peter Vesti. He also works in Europe on Battlefield, I believe. He's a developer. And then Suicide King, who you also know from the Sifted website. He's sitting at 0-2 right now, but he's pretty good at fantasy football. I have a feeling he'll turn it around. So early on in the season still, anything can happen. I'm 2-0 right now. I could finish the season with not another win. That's just the way fantasy football goes. But anyway, just want to give you guys an update on what's going on there. And now it's time for an update on Matt and I's video game fantasy league. For those of you who maybe have just joined our Patreon and don't know what our fantasy league is, several years ago, this is the fourth year that we've done it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the fourth season that we've done it. And essentially what we do is Matt and I take turns drafting games, just like fantasy football. Then once the game comes out and it gets reviewed, we take that Metacritic score, and that is the point total for that game. At the end of the season, we add them all up. Whoever has the highest point total wins the league. So it's time for an update. We have not done this all season, I don't think. I think this is the first one. So we're going to update. Here's how it looks right now. So we'll provide some commentary on this as well. As of right now, both of us have had 8 games released that we drafted. One thing to keep in mind that we changed for this year is we added 2 alternates because we had issues in prior seasons with games being canceled or moved out of the year, and we would just get zeros for those teams or for those games. So this year we added 2 alternate teams or 2 alternate games. So the bottom 2 games on each list are actually alternates. And the crazy part is Matt and I have both had to dip into all our alternates at this point.
Yeah, and I'm going to get screwed on that because one of my alternates is also not coming out this year.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dreams.
Yes, it's tough. You have to try to predict whether a game's going to be delayed or not, and obviously some studios have better track records than others with that, but it's really, really hard to predict.
I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's the first miss I've had.
Well, Dreams has been in development for like 8 years now. You would
Yeah.
think it would
Honestly,
finally come out.
I would have thought Days Gone was maybe a safer bet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
that
so Days
also
Gone I
fell
lost.
out.
So my alternate to fill in for Days Gone is A Way Out, which ended up getting a 78, which is way better than The Crew 2, which got a 67 for me. I think those 67s, you got one for Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
And I got The Crew 2. I think those might be the lowest scores we've ever got for a game that we drafted.
Maybe. I mean, there were a couple 60s, I think, at one point, but that's certainly the lowest score I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I think it's the lowest I've ever got, too, honestly. Any scores that stand out there for you now that we're kind of looking back in hindsight?
The fact that Spider-Man's not in the 90s is ridiculous.
No, it is. Yeah, that is a travesty. It started actually out as an 88, and it's gone down since the first week.
I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know what people are thinking, man.
Detroit is way too high. And Labo is, I'm not saying it's not a 77, but I'm surprised it wasn't more overrated.
Yeah. It didn't get as big of a Nintendo bump as you might expect. Yeah. Shadow of the Tomb Raider 81 is definitely lower than I thought it would be at when I drafted the game. That's for sure. But we're going to talk about that.
I thought that was a safe high 80s.
Yeah, I thought, but that's not the way it goes. And we are going to give our final thoughts on Shadow of the Tomb Raider right out of the gate once we get past this stuff. So stay tuned for that. So what do you think, Matt? Do you have a chance to come back?
I don't think so. I'm getting a 0.
Yeah, that's hard to overcome.
It's probably, unless and I don't think the games you have left, you've got, what?
Forza Horizon 4.
Forza 4 and Red Dead. I don't think those are going to underperform. So yeah, I think this is pretty much over.
Yeah, I think I finally won. Matt has beat me the last 2 seasons in a row. I beat Marcus Beer the first year, and now you've beat me twice. And I've been the one who's got burned by games being canceled in the past. I think last year I had 2 zeros.
2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah. So I finally, it looks like, unless barring a total catastrophe, it looks like I'm going to win and get my second championship just to match Matt's 2, which he already has. So just catching up with him. And then finally, we have a big, big surprise on GameFace today. I am going to share with you our new shirts. So not the actual shirts. I don't have them here. As I mentioned last week, they had screwed some of them up and they've been reprinting them. I went back, I think it was Wednesday of last week. Posted a photo on Twitter of me going there to check in on them. They are fixing all the problems. They're not charging me for the shirts that they screwed up. And I'm supposed to get the shirts, the final shirts, in the next couple days. They said Friday at the latest. So the shirts are going on sale on Monday at the latest, barring another issue at the screen printing place. The shirts will be on sale on SIFTD.net on Monday in our merch store, wherever all these shirts are on sale right now. And so what we're going to show you first is the design. Now the design for this round of shirts is the same for all the shirts. We have one design, but we have 3 different color combinations. So Sam, bring up the design. So this is what's going on the front of the shirts. This graphic was done by your fellow sifter, AW08. And I know I mentioned that somebody had worked with me on these. I didn't say who. It is AW08. He is the one that took my very crude sketch and turned it into what you're seeing right now. And then on the back of the shirts is this. So I had him sort of stylize the Sifted logo in a way that would match the graphics on the front of the shirt. So they're kind of comic book-ish, comic book-esque, and that's kind of what we've been going for with the designs on this shirt. And now we're going to show you the color combinations. Here's the first color combination. This is the most plain Jane of them all. It's just a white t-shirt with a purple violet. It's called Silkscreen. And you can see where we place the logos for the back is centered and small on the back of the shirt. Let's bring up option 2. Option 2 is light blue with dark blue screen. And let's bring up option 3. And option 3 is orange with a dark blue screen. And obviously these are the shirts that are for patrons. You'll be able to buy the orange as well yourself, but these are the shirts that we're going to send out to our patrons for those who have contributed at that tier or higher at any point. So if you've ever given us, even for 1 month, if you contributed to the level to get the shirt, we will be tracking you down and getting your address and sending you a free t-shirt. So that's it. Those are our new shirts. I hope you guys like them. I absolutely love the freaking design. I love the shirts. They're my hands down the favorite shirts that we've made so far for Sifted. I hope that you guys agree. I put out a huge chunk of money to get them made, but I have a feeling you guys are going to snatch them up. One thing I do want to say, though, is because I got stuck with so many shirts from the first round, we adjusted how many of each size were made this time, like big time. Last time we had way too few large t-shirts and we had way too many mediums. So we've shifted a lot of the mediums over to large because large is the most popular t-shirt size. And to get those orders, by the way, the first time, we did a poll of you guys, and for whatever reason, the people who responded to the poll all wore medium. We ended up being stuck with just dozens and dozens of medium t-shirts. So this time, we've shifted a lot of the mediums over to large, so you guys should be able to, more people should be able to buy them in their size. The other thing I would say too is if you are on the extreme ends of the size spectrum, if you wear a small or you wear a triple XL or even a double XL, you should probably try to buy the shirts real fast because we do not have very many of any of them. Especially if you like a very specific color combination and you want to get that, you should order the shirts on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday because I guarantee the smalls, the triple XLs, and the double XLs are going to be gone really fast. We ordered about the same amount of those this time as we did last time. But I do remember that they went very, very quickly last time, and I'm guessing that's going to be the case this time as well. So there you go. Those are the new shirts for Sifted. They'll be on the merch store on Monday, God willing. Hopefully nothing happens, and they deliver the shirts here in the next couple days. And then on next week's show, I'll wear one, obviously, so you can see what they look like while they're on. They are made by the same company that made the shirts last time. I have not had a single complaint about the shirts, our last round of shirts. They do a really good job. The screens are really good. I still have one of each one of our old designs, and they still all look brand new. So the screens have held up really well, and the shirts are of high quality. They're really comfy, and they fit really well. So anyway, that's on Monday, and you can look forward to that, and I hope you guys like them, and I hope you snatch them up. So with that, I think that's it for housekeeping. That was a lot of housekeeping for an episode. We usually don't do that. Oh, one more thing before we move on. And we've talked about this at the end of the show. I think we need to talk about it at the beginning. Folks who are watching the show on YouTube, first of all, thank you. You guys are awesome. Second of all, thank you, because when Pactor talked to you guys about this, you guys went and you did it in droves, which I really, really appreciate. It makes a big difference. But I just want to bring it up again. If you guys cannot afford to contribute to our Patreon, or you can't afford to subscribe, or maybe you just don't want to for whatever reason, you can give us a free $2.50 every single month just by linking your Twitch and your Amazon Prime accounts and then subscribing to our channel on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/SiftedGames. There are instructions in the description that literally have links. It makes it so easy. You can do it in like 30 seconds. And once you've linked your accounts on Twitch with Amazon, all you have to do is just click one button. You don't have to keep syncing your account every month, but you do have to do it every month. You can't just click it and then stay subscribed to us. It's a pain in the butt. I totally get it. But once you've already linked your accounts, it's literally a 3-second process to go to twitch.tv/SiftedGames and just click that button above the player. So if you guys would do that, we would really appreciate it. It can make a big difference for us. It can keep the lights on for GameFace, keep the lights on for Pactor Factor. Really appreciate it. So with that, let's get on with the show proper. We're going to start this show with what we wrapped up last show with, which is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. You had not played it at all when we talked about it last time. I had only played a handful of hours of it. You have now finished the game. Mm-hmm. I am at the end. At least as near as I can tell, I'm at the end. It feels like I'm at the end. So we both played a ton of it. Mm-hmm. Since I already kind of gave my initial impressions, Matt, what are your impressions of the game?
I like it a lot. I like Rise of the Tomb Raider, and this is pretty much Rise of the Tomb Raider, the expansion pack with a couple new things. Like there's a little more throwing a climbing axe to swing on things, and she's got a little rappelling rope she can mess with. And
how do you feel about that?
It's fine.
That's kind of a big change.
It's fine. Like it's a different way to traverse stuff.
You think it's fine?
Yeah.
I thought that was the worst part of the game. Like I feel like it's completely clunky and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and I died tons of times. Like the thing just would not connect with the wall, and I just fall into a pit. It felt very, very rushed to me.
I didn't have a problem with that. So I played on Xbox. The only issues I had with stuff like that was couple of, because you go up and talk to people, and a couple times I went up to talk to people, and like there was like an NPC like inside Lara, like Like they were standing there doing their kind of like, I am a guy sitting here talking to someone animation, and their hands kept like cutting through her, basically.
So just like a character was
It's
clipping
like,
through her
yeah,
model.
just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then at the end of the game, after I finished the game, I went and got all the collectibles, and I'm still stuck at 99%.
And it won't give you the trophy.
Won't give me the achievement, and it won't give me. It shows all these artifacts in my relic list as missing, but I got them all.
That sucks.
And I looked
You'll be able to patch that, and you'll be able to get the trophy?
I would think so. A similar thing happened with Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is kind of makes it more annoying because they already did this once.
They should know better.
But I mean, it's a minor thing. It was kind of a completist thing. When the whole game, overall, the game more or less worked properly. I think the high resolution mode on the X is pointless because it just tanks the frame rate for nothing.
So it's not really optimized for it.
No, the high frame rate mode is great. Like it runs pretty well. It chugs in the busier city areas, and there's a surprising amount of tearing. I think it's an unlocked frame rate. I don't think there's any VSync going on with it. But like you turn it on to high res, and it's supposed to be 30 frames a second, I think. But in the middle of the hidden city, which is like the big. Paititi is like the biggest area.
Yeah, they've talked about it incessantly.
Yeah, like running through the market, like I think it's dropping to like 15. Like I think it's chugging like a PS1 game. It's bad. So I kept it on high frame rate, and that was fine. Story was okay. It's kind of interesting to see her get put through the ringer because she is sort of like, she's an Indiana Jones style sort of like old school adventure archaeologist who kind of that sort of. We're going to go to an underdeveloped country and sort of steal your relics and put them in a museum and sell them to people kind of thing. And it was kind of neat to see that sort of archetypal character get called out on that.
She does get called out. Not by a lot of people in this game.
Yeah, by several people just like, what do you think your business is here? Jonah calls her out on it.
Yeah, he does, that dynamic between Jonah and Lara is way better in this game.
Yeah, Jonah is a character I think that she needs. The character needs Jonah there to, and I was glad he wasn't a constant presence in the gameplay sections. Right, early on, there's a couple places where you have to like work together to lift things.
Right.
And, kind of the Uncharted. It felt like Uncharted. It felt like we had to do. But he goes and he always comes up with another thing he has to go do for most of the game. And I prefer Lara on her own when she's adventuring around and doing that. But as a foil to her, like he is really great. And I also appreciate that there's no romantic relationship between them. They're just friends. And he actually
I root for them to get romantic, though.
Oh, no.
I do. I watch it, and I'm like, dude, why aren't you dating him? Like, he cares about you more, and he ends up, like,
because they aren't
meeting
like that.
some other girl.
And then, he meets some other girl. And like, because they talk about how he's, like, he does seem to, like, hook up with the local ladies on a pretty regular basis. But no, they're just buddies. And I dig it. Like, there's not enough, like, male-female just friendships in game stuff. Like, there should be more of that.
I just felt like there was tension. Like, there's a couple of moments where they pause.
I don't think he'd say no, but I don't think she's interested.
No, definitely not.
So,
but that's what I'm saying.
But I don't think she's interested in anyone.
Right. I found myself yelling at the television a lot. Like, you big dope, kiss him. Like, I literally thought that like 3 different times throughout the game. But it's not going to happen. She's like asexual, it seems like.
Yeah, she just got other shit to do.
Yeah, like raid tombs.
Like, no dude is going to be as exciting as, like, climbing through, like, weird corpse-ridden mud and finding a recipe for a new endurance potion.
Yeah.
Like, that's just what she does.
I love
this
Jonah.
Whole section
I love Jonah as a character.
This whole section is amazing. The whole Day of the Dead section is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful game.
It really, there are some moments that are literally jaw-dropping.
Yeah, and one of the, actually speaking of Jaws, one of the things that, it does not have really the character animation on par with Spider-Man, but the high-res cutscene models, I am really impressed by Lara's facial animation and her throat. Like, and Jonah has this too, although it's harder to see because he's got a beard.
Yeah.
But if you watch her throat, and there's a cutscene later where she talks to the kid, the son of the queen to be in Paititi. Mm-hmm. Watch the characters' throats and how the larynx moves and pops in and out, and the throat like tightens when they inhale or like or react to something. Like, it's
little details that
really
most games
good.
Completely miss.
It's like you can see when they're taking a breath and when they're like like not letting it out or sighing or reacting just by looking at the throat, and that is a bit of acting business that is almost never thought of in game, and you don't see it in the in-game, like, so that's in like the because I don't think the cutscenes are pre-rendered, those big ones, because she's wearing the outfits that I have her in those cutscenes.
I just know that they show the cutscene and they cut to the game, and there's a obvious fidelity drop.
Well, because they're using the cutscene models, not the in-game
Right.
models. So the cutscene models have the fidelity to do that. I do believe they're still real time though, because she changes her clothes, and like if they're pre-rendered, she wouldn't be in the different outfits.
I will say this, though, I would have been more impressed with it if I had just not played Spider-Man, where I think the faces are just like mind-blowingly amazing.
Spider-Man's on another level, but like just as a weird little animation appreciation thing, I thought the throats in this game are really impressive. Like that's a real thing. It makes them look like
throat tech.
Quite literally makes them look like living, breathing people.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
And if you watch, like in the cutscenes, where like if you just go up to talk to a random NPC for like a side mission, they don't do that. Like they're just moving their mouth like a normal video game character. But those the big scenes where they use the high-res models look amazing. Not quite Spider-Man amazing.
Yeah, but still impressive.
But the throat animation just still, I don't remember the last time I saw something that looked that good. And all the environments look great. It's nice that she's not somewhere freezing for once.
I took a lot of screenshots playing this game.
I didn't take too many, but I just appreciated a lot of it, and I was glad that it's a jungle, which doesn't seem like an unusual environment really. But after like the first game she's freezing and in the rain all the time, and the second game she's freezing in the snow all the time,
right.
And now it's like finally she can wear a short sleeve shirt and not die.
Right.
Great. And there's some beautiful outfits for. I also liked all the outfits for her. Like they made a lot of them made a lot more sense. The bonuses were cool, and she has a lot of like kind of like local garb. Like you have to wear certain outfits to talk to certain people, and some of the stuff you can unlock is really cool looking. Which I didn't think was true of the last two games. Most of the outfits I found a little bleh. And
a lot of these are like retro outfits from her old games.
Some of them are, yeah.
And those definitely do not work with the game, really.
No, you probably don't want to play with the low poly Tomb Raider 2 model, or like I think there's an Angel of Darkness.
There is,
one.
yeah. I thought they'd let that one just.
At a certain point in the game, I don't know if it was a glitch or what, but I got locked out of them.
Out of the outfit.
Yeah, at a certain point in the game, it only would let me wear like the outfits you craft and the full body outfits that were like related to the Paititi people, and I couldn't wear any of the modern clothing. And I don't know if that's an intentional thing it does at a certain point because you're supposed to be blending in,
right.
or what. But that was odd. But yeah, overall I really liked it. I think it got a little. I think it's a little underrated actually by review wise because it is not really breaking a ton of new ground, but it is doing what the last two did just as well, if not better, in terms of like the exploration and there's a lot less shooting in this. Like I'd say like this is more like it's about 70-30 puzzle solving and traversal versus about 30% combat, and I think the other games that ratio is probably the reverse.
Yeah, somebody tweeted at me. They're like, Did you think the game starts slow? Because I've been playing for a while and I've only fought like 3 dudes. And it's like, that's just the way the game is.
Yeah. You do a lot more puzzle solving and tomb raiding than you do shooting dudes in the face. It's a lot more like
the old games.
And most of the shooting, most of the combat action is backloaded. Like the last third of the game has a lot of it. And there's some crazy set piece stuff.
There are.
In the second half of the game. But like... I like that a lot. Like I prefer the kind of climbing around, solving stuff, figuring out. I mean, I know it kind of ties into that weird like trope that exists kind of from Indiana Jones and those old adventure serials where like apparently all our indigenous ancestors were like really into escape rooms.
Right.
But like it's cool. Like it all works, and it kind of scratches that Indiana Jones itch. So I had a really good time. I played the whole thing, and I never like I never wanted to stop playing or go play something else. And I played a little later than I should have several nights, and I give it a pretty big thumbs up. Like if you've already played Tomb Raider 1 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, and you aren't like over the moon for those games, I understand why you'd be waiting because there's a bunch of other stuff coming out and. It's not going to kill you to wait for it, but like I bought it for full price and do not regret doing so.
Okay, so I shared my initial impressions, and I was more positive on the game then than I am now after having played more of it. So I feel like there's a lot of significant changes to this. Some of them are for the better, some of them aren't. One of the big ones you're seeing right now, swimming is way more prevalent in this game.
A lot more swimming in this.
Way more.
And she can hold her breath, like,
forever.
in Rise of the Tomb Raider, she can only hold her breath for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually kind of ridiculous.
And you can upgrade her ability to swim faster. You can upgrade her ability to hold her breath. One of my big complaints with this game is there's a skill tree, and I had no interest in hardly any of it. It is the most boring skill tree I think I've ever seen in a video game.
It's not a good skill. Like, there's like 6 skills you really need, and beyond, and a lot of the skills that you also need, like that are unlocked by doing things, not opening with skill points. Like a lot of the interesting skills come from either finishing challenge tombs or progressing the story. And like when I was at the end, when I was left with like a bunch of skill points to spend, it was like, shoot 2 arrows at a time, or craft stun grenade, or it was like stuff I didn't need. It was stuff I didn't care about, or like craft potion out of this plant you've never used in 14 hours. So why would I need it now?
Make poison arrows. It's like I
mean, I think that stuff will probably makes more sense and is more necessary on the high difficulties.
Probably.
Because certainly playing Rise of the Tomb Raider on the high difficulty, like I used all my stuff more. I
understand why they're there. Because some people will want to play that way.
Yeah, the one change I thought was interesting for the high difficulties is, like, this series has always done that thing that Uncharted does, where there's a certain color that indicates where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
So, like, Uncharted, it's always yellow, and in this, it's always white. There's usually white paint or white rock somewhere. So if you put the difficulty up to hard or very hard on this game, the white paint goes away.
Oh, geez.
So that you have to, like, literally know in the environment where you need to go without any guidance.
I don't even think that would be fun, to be honest.
Well, there's been tons of people that complain about how there's too much guidance about where to go, so that mode is for them. So we'll see how they feel.
I disagree with that assessment.
I will probably try it at one point, but it's not something I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't turn it down, offhand. But I'm not. I've just spent like 20 hours playing. I'm not gonna just dive right in again.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting that they decided to kind of throw a bone to the the modern games are too easy audience with that. I'll be interested to see how people handle that. Because there's places even with the white paint in this that I didn't necessarily know what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't agree with that assessment. I don't think it holds your hand at all. Like, I've got stuck on a bunch of puzzles and had to really look at things and think about things. The puzzles are way more prevalent in this. The traversal was way more prevalent. And I agree with you. I think your 70-30 split is right. I think I would probably have enjoyed the game more if it was about a 50-50 split. I like the shift to more of the old-style tomb raiding, platforming, traversal, puzzle-solving stuff. I just think it went maybe a little too far in that direction. You said you had issues with the graphics. I've had tons of issues with the audio in this game. I've had the audio almost completely disappear, other than just being able to hear like crickets. I've had cut scenes where they cut between 2 characters, and when they show one character, the audio is fine, and they cut to the other character, and all you can hear is the ambient noise, like a stream running nearby. Or
you're playing on PlayStation?
I've been playing on a base PS4. I've had audio popping. I've had surround sounds come out of the wrong speakers.
The audio for me has been pristine. I wonder if that's a system difference.
I don't know. It was so bad that I went into the menus and started searching around for like the speaker configurations to see if maybe I had selected some weird configuration that was cutting out part of the sound. Nope. It was just a problem across the board, whether I played it in headphones or I was playing it on my surround sound system. And so for me, base PS4, I had a lot of issues with the audio in this game. Did you see on Xbox this wait for streaming thing popping up?
Yeah, that did pop up a couple times.
What is that?
Well, it's because, like, there's sections where, like, it slows you down, where, like, you have to wade through mud, you have to crawl under things. That's supposed to be, like, covering load time. Oh. And sometimes I think you just get through that fast before it's done loading.
This, despite the fact that the load times in this game are abysmal. It takes forever to load.
They weren't too bad, but they were longer.
Maybe you're playing on the X.
I am on the X. That probably helps, but they were longer than if I was like restarting a checkpoint or something. Yeah, they were longer than average. I would say.
I thought they were on PS4. The base PS4.
There's one specific area. It's where the first store you run into is in there's a little town you run into early on, and there's like a little store, and if you go through this like deep mud, there's a campfire, like a campfire, a base camp, and I would fast travel there to pick up collectibles, and every single time I fast travel to the base camp and walk through the mud towards the store, I get the wait for streaming thing there. That's
weird.
That was a place where it happened all the time.
Most games will not put up a weird like graphic that.
Yeah, it just hitches.
It just does it. Yeah.
But this one definitely, which makes me wonder, like on a like an Xbox One vanilla, would that pause be so long that they felt the need to put that there?
Possible.
That kind of thing.
I mean, it was bad for me on PS4. I mean, it would probably stay up like 2 or 3 seconds on screen before it would go away. Generally.
I never saw it that long on this, but it came up. I probably saw it like 5 times through the whole game.
Yeah. I saw it a lot more than that.
But I mean, it's obvious when she's slipping through cracks or climbing through things, like the game is loading the next area, and sometimes you just.
It's an old trick, but I've never seen a game handle it this way.
It's a little naked about it, I guess I would say. Here's
my biggest issue with the shift in focus to more traversal is that the traversal, in all honesty, just kind of sucks. There are no rules that the game sticks to. Like, there are tons of ledges that you should be able to jump up to, grab a hold of, climb up on, and there's just an invisible wall there keeping you from doing it. It's like, to me, if you're going to shift the focus and say, okay, this is about navigation, this is about getting around. And they did. I mean, between the swimming and the less gun combat, the less gunplay in the game, the shift in focus is absolutely to getting around the environments. And I don't feel like the game improved the tools to do that at all. It's still the same traversal that you had in the prior games when the focus wasn't really on that. And in those prior 2 games, it was okay because it was passable because you didn't have to do it that much. But now in this game, you do it all the time. And it's just like all these weird moments where I'm like, I should be able to go this way. I should be able to grab a hold of that ledge, and you can't. Everything is canned, predetermined. And again, that works okay when it's not the crux of the game. But in this game, it is the crux. It is what you do, like you said, 70% of the time. And I just don't think it's up to scratch. And I also think that the swinging in the game is terrible and awful. Literally, it was just a crapshoot whenever I jump off a ledge, whether my hook shot was actually going to connect to anything. There was no rhyme or reason whether it would or wouldn't. But I would breathe a huge sigh of relief when it would. I just don't think the mechanics, the controls in the game are up to the shift in focus away from the gunplay. Now, with all that said, I've still really enjoyed the game. It is a good game, and I would agree with you that the Metacritic average, in my opinion, is a little lower than it should be. But it also, to me, this is the least of the 3 reboots. The first game was kind of a shocker. And so maybe if I went back and played that now, I would say this game's better than that first one. But the first one left a much better impression on me. Having just played the second one not that long ago, to me, it's definitely better than this one. So I've found this one to be the least engaging from a gameplay perspective of the 3. I like the narrative in this one, though, as we had already talked about. I love the play between Lara and Jonah. Again, I thought there was tension throughout the whole thing. I'm like, man, just kiss him. Like, when you guys are just going to stop beating around the bush and just go for it. And it never,
I just don't get that from that relationship at all.
I do. He's like her protector. He saves her butt.
He's her brother. He's her brother.
Wait, he's her. Oh, you don't mean literally.
No, I don't mean literally, but that's their relationship as brother-sister, basically.
I don't know. I was rooting for. I love Jonah as a character. I think he's great, and I think that they've done a great job developing him.
I think he did just fine. For how
he is like the Mac in the game a little bit. And there was a part in the game where they kind of put it all to rest when he starts like carousing with a local.
And there's a lot of, like, when that happens, if you stand there and listen to their conversation, it goes on for like 6 minutes.
It does,
and it's all interesting. Like you can see them sort of bond over stuff that clearly he would not have in common with Lara.
And that's the shame, because artistically, aesthetically, the audio in this game is incredible. It's the technical part of it on PS4 that, for me, fell way short.
That's surprising. Like, PS4 usually doesn't have that kind of problem.
I've not experienced this in a game in a long time.
It's interesting.
The other thing I would say about the game that maybe isn't a criticism, but it's just something I kind of picked up on, is I felt a lot of times while playing this that it was trying to be something else. Like
it felt like maybe it's like I like the traversal. I think it all works fine, but I do think, like, I don't disagree that if you're gonna shift the series into being more about that, completely revamping it into something a little more organic would be in order. It wouldn't surprise me if they do get to make another one. That's something they would do, because now you've sort of like closed off this. The end of this does sort of round off the trilogy with sort of like, I can't wait to see what the next adventure is, sort of thing. So I think if there is one, I think like a minor reinvention of how it all works might not be a terrible idea, like you're talking about. Like if you're gonna really focus on the traversal as part of the puzzle solving in a much bigger way than the other two were. I definitely think like some rethinking of how it works would be in order, especially when you put your game out so close to Spider-Man, which is so much about traversal.
Absolutely. And that might be part of it too. Why I've soured on it a little bit is because I had just played Spider-Man, where so many things were done so well that my standards were just rocking at the top. And anything less than that's going to come off as like, wait a minute, this isn't as good as Spider-Man in that regard.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's better than the first reboot one.
I liked the tone of the first reboot better than the tone in this one.
I like the tone on this one better, and Rise better. I do like the first one a lot, but I think
there's a lot of shock value in the first one.
I don't know if I'd say this is better than Rise, even though it does focus on the part of the Tomb Raiding that I prefer. I'd have to think about it. I do think the people you meet in this are more interesting than the Remnant in Rise. The characters are better in this.
I'd agree with that.
So I don't know. It's close.
They have some more dimensions than what we had prior. A
little bit of that, a little bit of this. I think the villain is better in this. It's not, for once, it's not just like kind of a faceless, like, ooh, he's bad and wants to do a thing.
There's some shades to this villain, because the people in his village revere him and love him because he takes care of their village, but
he's got
when they don't see what he's doing, he's
and maybe he doesn't see what he's doing. Like that's an interesting villain. Usually is like, you want. I mean, I know we're in the era of Thanos, where it's like, at the very least, you want to be able to kind of see that the villain has a point of view, even if it's crazy or it's not something you would ever agree with. At least you can see that he has arrived at
some kind of reasoning
in some way.
Yeah.
And I think the bad guy in this does that, as opposed to sort of like one of the bad guys from the previous game does show up again.
Yeah.
But he's just sort of an attack dog, like he was in the previous game. But so I thought that was pretty good. Like, I'd like to see them continue. I'd like to see them grow this series more.
I'm a little disappointed that it didn't evolve more across the 3 games.
Yeah, especially since they took an extra year.
Yeah.
But like, I don't, I don't like ding it for that too much. But it's just like, I would definitely think, and I certainly think it's gotten hit a little too hard for that in the reviews. But I would say that if they do intend to do another one, they have, I think keeping everything more or less, the same and similar in these first 3, which sort of do form, in the end, they do form something of an origin story trilogy.
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of this, she sort of put to bed her Batman issues with her parents.
Because there are flashbacks.
There's a lot of stuff. It's straight up Uncharted 3.
It really is.
It's like it's. You
but
get
that's
to
what I was saying. Like playing this game, there were so many moments where I'm like, this reminds me of this game. This reminds me. There's a part in this game that reminds me a whole hell of a lot of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Even right down to the costume.
Right. Yeah.
If you think about that whole section of the game, I'm like, I just felt like the developers behind this game have been playing a lot of modern games, and we're like, hey, why don't we put this section in that's a little bit like this game, and just the swinging. After playing Spider-Man, I'm surprised you're okay with the swinging in this.
Well, it's not a major.
Clunky and awkward.
Like you swing, you don't
have to do it very often.
You lower down, you hold the trigger, you swing back and forth, you hit jump.
No, that stuff I'm fine with. It's the more like the sections where you're literally like swinging like Spider-Man, where you have to connect it, jump, connect it again, jump, and you're going across a chasm with all these like things hanging down. In fact, I posted a video of something like that
where you have to hit
on Twitter.
I don't know. Sometimes I miss those when like I was like, you're sliding that thing and you have to jump off it and hit it, and like the timing is just weird. But like you jump, you hit the button, she does it. It's all automatic. Like there's nothing.
There's other little niggling issues, like just the jumping, like the grace period, the grace space you have on the edge of platforms is not enough. Like a lot of times, if the jump was really long and you're trying to get that jump that comes off right off the edge of the platform, 8 times out of 10, I would just fall off the platform. Well, like if you're really into like jumping and climbing and platforming in video games, this game is not up to scratch.
Well, I think it's just there's inconsistent
and it's a
parts.
huge part of it.
I just don't. That was not how I played. I didn't encounter that at all. My if anything, I think that it fudges it in your favor too obviously a lot. And you see this in the set piece stuff more than kind of the traversal stuff. Like, you know, because there's at least 2 things in every one of these Tomb Raider games where everything is falling apart and you have to run straight ahead
at least 2
and jump. You know, and like there's moments in a couple, especially one early on, where there's one jump where I'm just like, because I think Insomniac actually talked about years ago about how the way you make a platformer feel good is you let the player sort of jump a little bit after they fall off the ledge.
Yeah.
You know, like you give them like this little bit of invisible grace period.
Yeah.
And you can see that in Dead Cells.
Almost every game has it.
That's a lesson that a lot of that. And usually, this game does have that. But there's certain jumps, usually at the end of like sliding down something, where it looks like this is where you should jump. In these last 3 jumps, I had to jump from here, and then I hit the button, and she swings, and it's fine. But for whatever reason, it's like 2 feet shorter, and she falls off each time.
Yep.
So those are the ones that I noticed that on. The other, and like you just had to adjust. It took me a couple retries. The other thing that annoys me in this game, and it's not a thing that kills you because it's a thing that's in your favor, but there are some times when you try to make a jump, and in my head, just off of hours of playing the game, I'm thinking, she can't make that jump.
Yeah.
But because it's part of like either a canned sequence or simply the next place you have to go, she's just sort of like
she's rockets.
Spider jumps like across. Yeah.
See, I would do is I'd be like, there's no way I can make that jump. So I'm going to go back and try to find some other way. And you waste all this time, and you come back, you're like, oh, I could have made that jump all along.
Yeah, see, I don't do that because I just, like, I bet she can make that because this is where I'm supposed to go. Yep, she made it. It's like, and it's just inconsistent.
Right.
And it's a
That's
weird,
the problem, though.
It's a weird level design choice.
Yeah.
It
has to be consistent. You have to be able to rely and know that it's going to do the same thing every time, and that is where this game falls short.
And it makes up for that in kind of like the autopilot, like canned stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not really killing you a ton, but it doesn't really feel like a satisfying way to solve the problem.
Yeah,
So
I think overall,
so in the end, I would agree
feel
that
like I'm moderately in control of her.
Yeah,
and I don't like that. Like I like feeling like I am 100% in control.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also, you know, it's there's a balance to that maybe stands out less favorably in a game where they are making you do it as often as they do in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just, you know, I think the next game probably does need a full revamp in how it all works if they intend to stick with this balance of combat versus puzzle solve. Because I think the puzzle solving is all really good.
It is. The puzzles are great.
The puzzles are really well done.
The difficulty is perfectly tuned. Like some of them are going to make you think a little bit, but they're not so impossible that you're never going to figure them out. They're just challenging enough that when you do solve them, you feel good about it.
Right. And they even added a thing in the difficulty selection for that. Where
yeah.
If you're on normal, she'll sort of like vaguely hint what you're supposed to do. If you're on higher, she won't say anything.
Right.
And if you're on easy, she'll just straight up say, "I should move that over there."
Right.
So like, there's never a point where I never had to do that.
That's a clever way.
Yeah, but that's a good way to kind of like, if you get completely stuck, you bump it down to easy and do the Sixth Sense thing, and she'll just sort of tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool way to do it.
Yep. Overall, I mean, I had a really good time with this game. Like, here's the moment of truth: is it worth $60?
It was for me. Like, I don't regret playing it at full price at all.
Yeah.
Will I buy the DLC? I don't know. Depends what it is.
Yeah.
I was not a giant fan of the Baba Yaga DLC of the last one.
Yeah. They have not done a great job with DLC.
All the DLC for this series has been a little underwhelming to me.
Yep. Agreed.
So we'll see what it is. We'll see how it turns out. But like the base game, I thought was great. Good length. I did think it was a little. It felt a little. It's weird. I thought it felt a little small.
I agree.
It's not small. It's clearly more square footage than the last game. But you only go to like 6 places.
No,
it's
you're
like
right.
it's like bigger individual locations, but there's
less
fewer of them.
Yeah.
And like they talk about how big Paititi, the hidden city area, is, and yeah, you spend a ton
gigantic,
of gigantic.
yeah.
But it also feels like, well, I spent like half the game here, and it feels like it feels like less of an adventure.
At least it felt like half the game there. I mean, that's where that's kind of where everything happens.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I said when we were talking about, I think the run up or the previews to it, where I was like, I would love to see them do a Tomb Raider game that was like Tomb Raider Chronicles back in the day, which was like, it was like 5 sort of separate adventures, and they all sort of had like sort of a common thread that came together in the end. Like I would love to see a Tomb Raider game that like the next one be a little more just like Lara's jet setting archaeological missions. And like in the end,
that would be good
like
DLC.
Like a common thread kind of comes up, and like it all sort of like, oh, in the end, it's like this leads to this, and this leads to this, and you know, it ends up being some kind of coherent thing, or she's up against some kind of like, you know, rival archaeologist or something like that, or like some evil version of herself, or whatever the hell you want to make it. But just like, you know, globetrot a little more. Like I get that it's a little more rational from a game development perspective to pick an environment and just do that environment really well. But now you've got really good like kind of rocky island, and now you've got really good jungle, and now you've got really good tundra. So just sort of like reuse some of that and like plug it into your new ideas and like make it a little, you know, a little more of a Jedi Academy thing. Like go to a whole bunch of different places, and so it doesn't feel quite so much like I'm sort of stuck in the same sort of 10-mile radius the whole time. That would be my wish for the next one, in addition to kind of revamping the traversal to sort of, you know, the traversal, like I think you make a good point in that the traversal is the star of the show in this one in the way it wasn't before. And so, yeah, they do need to work on that a little more.
I'm okay with the direction.
Right, the direction's good, but they need to justify the direction by making the traversal something that's more fun and more dependable.
And interactive, and something you're in control of. So, as far as whether I think it's worth $60, I do. I don't think most people, if you like the last 2 games, I don't think you'll buy this and you're going to regret it.
No. Although I do think it would help if you had a Pro or an X or PC. I don't know how it's running on PC. I mean,
I'll be honest with you. It ran and looked great on my base PS4. Other than the audio issues, I didn't really have any problems with it. It's a gorgeous game, even on the base PS4. And I didn't really see any frame rate dips or any performance issues other than that weird loading thing that would come up.
It doesn't. It doesn't hold 60 all the time on high frame rate on the X. I think you're dipping into the 40s semi-regularly in busy areas. But it's not bad. Like it's entirely playable, and I did just play a little bit of Rise kind of in the warm up on the Xbox One X just to kind of compare, and I will say that it's a lot easier to find aim and headshots are a lot easier in this game because it runs at a higher frame rate than most of the other modes on the Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Makes a difference.
So
absolutely,
I think that they did step it up technologically, and I think they took pretty good advantage of the X's power.
One thing I think I'll say before we close on this game is that I'm a little down on the 3rd installment, but I do think that they have done a great job of rebooting and reviving this franchise. Because let's be honest, it was pretty much left for dead before they decided to do this. So maybe they dragged out her becoming who she ultimately was going to become a little bit. But it's a great trilogy. All 3 games are good to amazing. And I think if you enjoyed the first 2 games, you're going to enjoy this one too.
Yep. I hope they push past it and come up with some new ideas moving, because this one does, to its credit, put to bed the issues with her father, all the Trinity stuff. Like it gives you some closure.
Thank God. I'm done with Trinity, man. I'm over it.
It gives you closure on all that stuff. So hopefully they can move it in a new direction and come up with some new ideas for it, because it's time.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something we have never talked about on GameFace, and that is NASCAR.
I was not warned about this.
And this may be the last time we ever talk about NASCAR. I have been playing NASCAR Heat 3. And the reason I decided to play the game, one, they sent it to me, which is awesome. I got a code for it.
Boy out of rural Pennsylvania.
I do not like NASCAR. For the record, I am not a NASCAR fan. I have tried to enjoy NASCAR. It's just never clicked, and I don't begrudge anyone who does like it. So I have not played a NASCAR game since EA held the license. And so this other smaller publisher has had the NASCAR license now, I think, for like 3 years. And I figured they sent me a code. I figured it was a good time to jump in and see how it had changed, if it improved or not improved since EA lost the license. So I gave NASCAR Heat 3 a pretty good go. Yeah, I don't think that they've improved the NASCAR video game since EA lost the license. I will say this. I was pleasantly surprised by this game, though, because the developer and publisher are small, and this game is pretty full-featured. I think what turns a lot of people off from NASCAR, not just NASCAR video games, but NASCAR in general, is how long the races are. It's like, some races are like 500 laps. But this game, it's easy to just say, well, we'll just make the race 4 laps. That's an easy way to fix the problem. But this game does a good job of scaling the game from 500 laps to 5 or 6 laps and still creating the feeling of an ebb and flow of a NASCAR race, if I'm making any sense at all. Like, you would think, okay, with NASCAR, if you're in 20th place and you're trying to finish in the top 10, that's going to take 70, 80 laps, generally, of you playing well and somebody else making a mistake or whatever. They do a good job of truncating all that down into just a handful of laps in this game. So there's still like an ebb and flow. If you're way behind, you can still catch up and get inside the top 10 if you need to for the points or for the cash or whatever. Another thing it does to kind of mitigate the fact that NASCAR races are generally really long is there's an option that lets you just cut straight to the cup chase. And all you do is just race the big races with the stars. The game is all officially licensed, so you have all the real drivers, all the real cars, all the real tracks. I chose to play as Danica Patrick because she's like leaving the sport. If I guess you can call it a sport.
Yeah, it's a motorsport.
Yeah, it's a motorsport.
Hey, they're working hard in there.
Yep.
It's not easy.
It's hot. Yeah, I could not imagine driving one of these cars for like 4 hours straight. Like just playing a video game of it was exhausting at times.
Concentration takes effort.
Yep. So there's the cup chase mode where you can just cut straight to the fun stuff, or there's the career mode. The career mode in this game is insane. You start out as a dirt track driver, and you're what's called a hot seat driver. So you don't have a team, you don't have any sponsors. You're basically a fill-in. So you dial into the local tracks. They're like, yeah, we lost a guy. You want to come in? We'll pay you $2,500 to drive a car tonight. You start doing that, and eventually you build up your acclaim and your reputation, and then eventually you start your own team. And we're seeing that process right now where you start your own team. Once you start your own, and you can choose not to start your own team as well. You can just go pro and drive for somebody else if you want. But obviously, creating your own team helps you dive into what the entire game has to offer.
And they spelled construction wrong.
Yeah, there's not a great amount of polish slathered over this game, Matt. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
But you start your own team. You start with one car. You hire people to work on your crew, and you can level those people up. You can train them to make them better at their jobs. They're all, you can see right there, they're all proficient in 3 different disciplines based upon the car. And essentially you use them to level up your vehicle and improve your vehicle. And it's a process. Everything they do takes time. You have to monitor them. You have to hire new guys as you're making more money. You can see car customization obviously is a big part of it. It's not like Forza where you can like create your own like logos and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't go that deep. It's like, hey, here's the 50 logos we have from our sponsors. Put them wherever you want. That's about where the customization ends. But as you start your team, you start in dirt track, you work your way up through dirt track, you start racing trucks, and then eventually you get to the big dance with NASCAR where you're actually racing with the big boys and all the licensed drivers. So the career mode in this is pretty good. It's grindy. You have to complete a lot of races to make even minimal amounts of headway. For me, that became annoying. For a NASCAR fan, I could see where they absolutely would gobble it up. And the other thing I would say about the game is it is absolutely targeted at the NASCAR fan and not the gamer. So it is very easy. I know maybe some of the early races you saw there where you're first starting out, like I was finishing 12th or whatever. Once you get to where you're building your car or you're just racing in the chase for the cup, it's so easy. Literally, like, it's like my first racing game. And if you look, there are difficulty settings, and you can jack it up, and I did do that to see if the competition was better. It was better, still not where it needs to be. So you can see that they've kind of tuned this game for the NASCAR fan, who maybe doesn't play a ton of video games, loves NASCAR.
Maybe not going to be playing totally sober.
Probably, yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. And I think that makes sense. I mean, this is a game, not a lot of hardcore racing people are going to buy or play this game. It's going to be NASCAR fans who maybe haven't played a ton of video games. So I think it was smart for them to kind of tune it that way. I do wish that the higher difficulty was designed for people like us who have played a lot of driving games. The racing model itself is pretty good. The physics, a lot of it seems to be faked. Like, I don't know if you've seen, like, here, you can see it. Like, that power slide isn't really a power slide. Like, if the car is just turning, like, sideways, the physics don't feel exactly right. And the opposing AI, all the cars are just on a rail. which means you can use them as bumper cars in turns. So you can come into a turn really hot and pass like 10 cars in one turn because they all slow down the way that they should. You can barrel in, slam into them, and use them as a guardrail and make it around the turn and pass like 10 guys in one turn. And so, again, I think the whole thing's been tuned for a more casual audience, people who would probably are going to be interested in buying this game. There are online races, and again, they're extremely customizable, but you can race like 500-lap races online if you want to with like 40 other people. And I think that's another thing that kind of sets this apart from other racing games is how many cars are on each track. There's a definite feel to this game when you're coming around a turn and you're literally like 3 or 4 cars wide and there are 20 cars in front of you and 15 cars behind you. And perfect B-roll right here. This is when the game is at its best, where just the slightest nudge of the analog stick will jump you in or inside or outside. You have to be very, very careful, very, very sensitive with the analog stick. And this reminds me a little bit of Wave Race on N64, where just the slightest budge left or right would make a big difference in how the vehicle handles. And I like that about it. There's a rival system, so you can't just slam into people and not face repercussions. In Rivals, I did notice it. Like a guy, I basically ran him off the track and wrecked him. In the next race, he just went after me. Like, he didn't even really care about the race at all. He was just trying to take me out and wreck me off the track. So that, I think, is in place to kind of check the using cars as guardrails in the corners. But overall, I think that tactic ultimately was worth the dealing with some rivals here and there. So I guess I would say I'm pleasantly surprised by NASCAR Heat 3. I thought it was going to be way worse than it was. This small studio that's working on this is doing a pretty good job. They definitely get the sport, and I think they definitely understand the audience and the people who would potentially buy the game. I just think for most people like us or our fellow sifters or the folks on YouTube, I don't think it's a game that they're going to enjoy over the long term because it just doesn't put up much of a challenge. So there you go. Our 10 minutes.
But luckily, if you didn't watch this, you would never hear about it. So
right. That's a good point. But so there you go. There's our 10 minutes on NASCAR, our first 10 minutes on NASCAR, and probably our last. Next, we're going to talk about...
I'll just wait for Forza Horizon.
Pretty much. Yeah, that would be my recommendation, is just wait another, like 3 weeks?
Not even. It's not next week.
Is it next week?
Yeah, it's 27th.
What comes out, I think, if you buy the extra expensive version in this month.
It's earlier.
Yeah, and then if you don't, you have to wait till, I think, like October 2nd or 3rd or something like that. But a couple weeks away. Yeah, so yeah, if you're looking for an arcade-style racing game, definitely wait for Forza Horizon 4. Now we're going to talk about another game that I never thought I would play, but I did, and that is SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy. This is what is supposed to be an all-star brawler from SNK that features all the female characters from all its franchises. And I will just have to, in the interest of full disclosure, I have to tell you right out of the gate that I literally recognize like 3 characters in this entire game. So they're plumbing the depths of the SNK catalog to pull in the roster for this game. Now, here's something else I would say. I have not played a more wacky, off-the-wall Japanese game like this in a really long time. So the setup for this game is you play as the girls, you wake up in this mansion, you've been drugged, and it turns out you've been brought to this mansion by this guy that you're seeing right now, and only a Japanese game would have this premise. So he has kidnapped the girls. He's brought them to this mansion to extract their fear so that he can then use that fear to resuscitate a creature. And it's the whole setup is kind of like a little Saws-like the movie Saw. It's like you're trapped in this crazy contraption-filled mansion, and there's cameras everywhere that are like observing, quote-unquote, observing the girls. There's attempts at humor that completely fall flat. The writing is completely awkward. They have not done any translation at all as far as the voice work. It's all in Japanese. There are literally 5 cutscenes in the entire story mode. And in fact, I may ultimately clip them all together in one video and publish them on SIFTD because it is just completely absurd and makes no sense whatsoever. So that's the setup. The gameplay itself is kind of like my first fighting game. Everything is kind of handled for you. There are, as far as the move list is concerned, it's very small. each fighter has probably 25% to a third of the moves you would count on having per character in most fighting games. The finishers are like basically automatic. Like a little thing pops up on screen, and you just hit R1, and it just does the finisher. Obviously, with the name, tag team is a big part of the game. And so when you select a character, you actually select two. You select your main character, you select your support character, and then you can tap R2 at any time and bring in your tag partner, and they'll come in. There's not a lot of strategy involved with it, in all honesty. Like, I usually just tagged in my other partner when either my first character was getting beat up and was almost near death, or when the finish sign popped up on the screen and I couldn't pull off the finisher with my existing character. I would just swap in the other one and then tap R1 and pull off the finisher. So in a lot of ways, it's like a beginner's fighting game. I don't know how that aligns with the potential audience for this game. I don't even know what the potential... To be perfectly honest with you, Matt, after I played this game, I really struggled to rationalize why it exists.
Probably just for fans of SNK stuff.
I mean,
there is a side hustle in the fighting game community that's sort of like, as they would say, the kusoge thing, which is like short for shit game in Japanese. So it's like, and there, you'll see that like side streams in like fighting tournaments where like people are playing like these like weird. That's why Fighting Layer got made. It's because it was like, you know, people playing the old Street Fighter EX games,
right?
Sort of for a laugh, but also like to be, you know, like they're good at them. You know, like they've mastered them, what there is to master. So I would guess it's kind of for that. Plus, like it's kind of got the Dead or Alive sort of like boob game thing.
I mean that. To expand on what I was saying before, like I found nothing edifying about this game. I don't feel like I'm any better for myself after having played it. Like literally, I don't really find any redeeming values in this game. There are better fighting games. There are better girl oogling games. There are better fighting girl oogling games in this.
Ogling?
Oogling, yeah.
Ogling.
What is it?
Ogling.
Oh, I thought it was Oogling.
No, it's one O.
Oh. Well, anyway.
Oogling is a different thing. Probably.
You know what I meant.
Yeah.
And Dead or Alive is better at both than this game is.
Or that other, what's the other, wasn't that some Senran Kagura game came out where you just tickle the girl for the whole time? Yeah, that was out.
I mean, look, that's the vibe I get off of this game.
It's that kind of thing, yeah.
It's just like, hey, here's girls with big boobs with hardly any clothes on. You can, as you play the game, you earn credits. You can then use those credits to unlock art. You can unlock cutscenes, which is weird. Not that they're worth watching. You can unlock like music files and things like that, and you can unlock costume items. And I can already see where this is all headed.
It's a fan game, basically.
And I understand that, but who is a fan of 80% of the roster? I mean, I think most people have no idea who these people are. Really?
Most people, sure, but like fighting game fans who like SNK, I recognize 80% of the people on that character select screen. Yeah, I don't know who the support character is here, but like most of the characters that you scrolled through there, like I know who they all are. Most of them are just from King of Fighters.
Really?
Or permutations, yeah.
Maybe they look a lot different in this.
There is a slightly different art style, and of course here Terry is a girl for some reason.
Right. Because they still had to have Terry in the game.
Yeah, you can't do an SNK fighter without Terry Bogard.
And the funny part too is that they do call her Terry in the cutscenes, which is just, I don't know. I spent a good bit of time playing this because I felt like I should if I'm going to talk about it. And after I got done playing it, I was like, why did I do that? I'm
surprised you played it at all.
Yeah, well, they sent me a code, and it's out on like PS4 and Switch and maybe PC.
Yeah, they bring a lot of this stuff to PC.
And I just figured look, these games do really well on SIFTD. That's the truth. You know, if you look at our numbers, like people watch the trailers and the gameplay for these games, and so that means that we've got an audience for this stuff, and I need to cover it and make sure that I'm helping those people out, trying to figure out whether they should buy this stuff. And look, I get some people who are into these games are only going to buy them just to check out the chicks or whatever. So I understand that part of it, but some of them do care if there's actually a game worth playing there. And in this case, instead of paying full price for this game, I would recommend buying any of the best 3 or 4 fighters that have come out, or save your money for Soul Calibur 6, which also, by the way, is an ogling game.
Yeah. That's a tradition in Soul Calibur.
Yep, and Soul Calibur is coming out pretty soon. So
Tacky and her
even though
boob socks.
I think this is only like $40. It's not a full price game, but
That's still a lot for a goof game. Basically.
It is, and I would spend the extra $20 and get Soul Calibur, or chances are you can get one of the older games for probably around that same price now. So again, I really have no idea why this game exists. I don't feel...
Or the latest King of Fighters, which I guarantee is better.
Yeah, exactly.
A better fighter.
No, you're right. And I just feel like I wasted my time on this, so you don't have to. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. That is part of our jobs, is jumping on the grenade here and there, and that's what I did with this one. So even on Switch, where I know you're really hurting for good fighting games, I do not recommend spending the money on SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy.
Sega should put Virtua Fighter on that thing.
Absolutely. Where is Virtua Fighter, Matt?
Buried in a basement.
Are we ever going to see another one, do you think?
I don't know. I feel like we probably would have by now, but then you never know. Like, I never thought we'd see, remakes of Yakuza 1 and 2.
Right.
I never thought we'd see.
That's
I never thought we'd see HD versions of Shenmue. Like, Sega surprises you on a pretty regular basis. So
I will say this is the most shallow fighting game I have played since like the N64 days. Because there were some fighters that came out for N64 that were like 2-button fighters or whatever. Like, this trays very, very close. Like, there's like 2 counters per character. There's 2 throws per character. There's 1 finisher per character, and they're so easy to pull off that they feel completely cheapened. Every match is 1 round, so the matches literally last, in some cases, like 35 or 40 seconds. It made it really easy to get. I think I got through the career mode, Matt, in this game in like 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the first time I played it. So there's just not many redeeming elements or factors to this game. So I say steer far, far away. I've seen reviews for this game that have given it like an 8.5. Yes, we curated one.
As good as Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So do not believe that hype. This game is absolutely... I mean, I'm not writing a game eval for this, but I'm guessing if I did, it would probably end up getting around a 3.5 or somewhere around there. So... stay away, people. Even if you're a Switch owner and you have no fighting games to play, just hold on for Smash.
If you're a Switch owner, you should have that Street Fighter collection to play.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
And no reason for this.
And that wasn't full price either, was it?
No, I think it was 40.
40, something like that, yeah. So stay away. Even you Switch owners, don't do it. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Dragon Quest XI. This game's been out now for, what, a week and a half?
A couple of weeks, a little while.
Yeah, we're a little late to the party on this one, but it's a gigantic game. Like, there still aren't a ton of reviews for this game out there.
No, I haven't played a ton of it. I actually started it right after I finished Tomb Raider. So I'm like a handful of hours, less than 10 hours into it.
So here's the thing with Dragon Quest. I'll put the ball on the tee for you, Matt. I haven't played this at all. This is all Matt who's been playing it. Square Enix, or just even Enix back in the day, has struggled to make this game palatable to the U.S. market. It just gave up for a period there. Over the last decade, it's really worked hard to try to make this game something that Western audiences will appreciate. Do you feel like Dragon Quest XI has done that?
No.
No.
It's just Dragon Quest.
Okay.
So I have played I played Dragon Quest going back to Dragon Warrior 3 on the NES. The Dragon Quest games were renamed Dragon Warrior for a long time here.
Yeah.
Dragon Quest is a kind of the JRPG that sort of spun out of the success of Wizardry, the Western RPG Wizardry in Japan. The old Dragon Quests were part of like this sort of movement over there to sort of try to adapt that sort of a game into like, a console kind of JRPG idea, and that's sort of where the idea of a JRPG comes from. Is these games? That's why Dragon Quest has such a Western fantasy sort of element to it. Is it's based on wizardry and maybe some might and magic in there as well. So they've had their, this is the game where there was the urban legend that I don't think ended up being true, that like basically it was almost a national holiday in Japan when a Dragon Quest game would come out because everybody.
It used to be that way.
That apparently is not true. As I
really?
understand it. That was.
I mean, I would see the pictures of lines and crap where they were like wrapping around the city.
But apparently there was not like a thing where like so many people didn't show up to work and school that they just gave up and called it a holiday. Like that was the legend back in the day.
Okay.
But it was extremely popular and it just never caught on here. I think there was a drought where like no Dragon Quest games came to the U.S. between like 3 and 7 or something like that. Like when the one came out on the PlayStation 1, that I think that was 7. It was like a big deal. It was like, oh, Dragon Quest is back.
No, it was.
And of course, Dragon Quest was, and that was the first time I think they called it Quest here, and it was just this endlessly long, grinding, like baseline JRPG.
These games are huge.
That some people love, but like some people like me just couldn't. I got like 20 hours in that game, and that was enough. I've gone back and played a fair number of them because they put basically all of them out again on the DS and 3DS over the years.
Yep.
And the Game Boy. I think I have all of them across like the 3 Nintendo handhelds, like from the GBA or Game Boy Color releases of 1, 2, and 3 up through the remake of 8, which is a PS2 game, and 9, which only came out on I think on the 3DS. And then of course no one's played 10 because that was never released here because it's in like an MMO or something like that on the 3DS.
I have a lot of unopened Dragon Quest games.
So do I. But I have
that were sent to me by Enix or eventually Square Enix, and I knew that they were like 80 hours, 100 hours, and I just never even opened them.
I played through 4, 5, and 7 on the 3DS, mostly through plane flights. They're my go-to like travel games usually, or they were. I haven't done that in a while, but like. Because they're just, you know what they are. You don't really need a strategy guide for anything. You can just sit there and grind away, and you'll still make progress. And they're super old school, and that doesn't change with 11. The thing that strikes me about Dragon Quest 11 so far is that it sure is a JRPG, and it delivers everything you expect from a Dragon Quest game, except it's just really pretty, and I got to admit
it is a pretty game. Absolutely.
That while I have fallen asleep playing it, partly because it's just sort of soothing.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate the fact that they are not trying to reinvent the wheel here. They're not trying to like give you Dragon Quest like you've never seen it before. It's just here's Dragon Quest made with modern tech.
Yeah.
Enjoy and like
really
and like orchestral
I'm
music
assuming.
and it's very polished. Everything works pretty well. I mean, the jumping is a little janky, but like it's almost expected in these games.
Yeah.
These like kind of JRPG games that add like a little platforming element. But there's a day-night cycle. There's some modern nice to haves happening. But for the most part, as you can already see here, it's Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
And it's in HD.
Turn-based RPG, which is really rare in 2018. A big budget turn-based RPG. You have Persona, and you got this.
Pretty much. And it's kind of slow moving. It does have voice acting in it. A lot of
very perky.
Very.
I was
upbeat.
setting up for the show, and you were playing it in there, and just kept hearing the voice acting. I was like, "Holy cow!"
Yeah, it's very.
They're very excited to be in this video game.
It's a bunch of British stage actors and BBC actors, as far as I can tell. The guy you're seeing here, that's Eric. That's the first party member you get. That's voiced by a British dude who's doing, I think he's trying to either do Brooklyn or Boston and sort of doing both.
Big difference.
But also letting his own accent slink through once in a while. And it is one of the weirdest performances I've ever, he's going for just sort of a street tough thief guy, but like you never know what R is going to come out of any word he says. It's kind of amazing. And like you could justify it by saying like, well, it's a fantasy world, so there wouldn't be a Boston or a Brooklyn or a British accent. So the fact that it's an accent you've never really heard before actually makes it more authentic because this is just what these guys sound like. But no one else sounds like him, so it's kind of everyone else is Cockney in the area he lives in. But like, it's interesting to play sort of like this. It's just like really high production value, bare bones JRPG.
How's the combat system? Obviously,
And I
it's
kind
turn-based.
of dig it. Like I like
You
it.
like going back to the basics.
Yeah, well, it actually seems to take a page out of Persona in that you only directly control the main character. So the other characters in your party
They just
act on their own.
Bamf. Oh, they act on their own.
They act on their own. So and you can adjust tactics like in the battle, but you don't get to choose attack whatever.
Interesting.
At least not so far. I mean, maybe that changes later, and they're just got me on easy mode training wheels for
Well,
now.
considering the game's probably about 80 hours long, that's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm closing in on 7 or 8 hours now, I think.
Yeah.
But so far, it's like a Persona thing.
So I can see there's random encounters.
Yes. Well,
You can't avoid them, though.
You can avoid them as much as you want. They have the Persona thing where you whack them with the sword before you fight and you take a little damage off them. You ride a horse around.
Does that give you first attack as well?
Not always.
Really?
But it does seem to just sort of damage them a little bit. And then you ride a horse around, and that makes you more or less invincible. You can still get in fights and pick stuff up on the horse, but you don't have to really fight anything that is at your level while you're on the horse, and it gets you around faster. There's a nice map system that lets you like look through and see where all the the gather points are for components and stuff, and places you've been. You can actually sort all the gather points by what you get from them.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a specific like material, like it's real easy to you don't have to remember. Oh, that one place with the trees in the corner of was the other corner. It's like you just look it up through the map system and you know exactly where you need to go pick up your 10 bear asses for your stupid fetch quest or whatever. Yeah, like
What's the plot? What's the story?
at the beginning
Did Dragon Quest? I don't even know the answer to this. Do Dragon Quest games continue the plot from one game to another?
no.
Okay.
Not in my experience, at least. They seem to have. It's like Final Fantasy. It seems to just be common elements.
Okay.
Or if there is a story that continues through the whole thing, I have never played them deeply enough to connect the dots.
Yeah.
But basically, it begins with like some kind of attack at the castle, and these girls escape with the baby and get chased by riders. And then the baby floats down a river, and an old man finds it and picks it up and takes it with him. And then it cuts to like 16 years later, and the baby is this guy,
Okay.
your character, and you are going to climb this little mountain with your childhood friend Gemma and her dog, because that's what you do when you come of age in this village. Is you climb the mountain and you say a prayer and you come back down, and now you're in
Now you're a man.
Yep, literally, that's what it is. And when you come back down, you go back to your mom, and she's like, okay, you're actually adopted, and here's this little like pendant, and you have this mark on your hand that like indicates that you're like the reincarnation of the luminary. And you need to go talk to the king and find out what you need to do, what your destiny is. So that's the beginning. You go and you leave town and you go to meet the king. And as you can tell when you see the king's character design, because Akira Toriyama is not a subtle man.
No one's ever accused him of that.
He is a bad guy, and they all want to kill you because the luminary is going to do a thing that they don't want to happen.
Is this the king right here we're seeing?
No, but they're working for him.
Oh, okay.
So that's like one of the bad guy knights working for the king, and they throw you in a dungeon, and that's where you meet the blue-haired guy, and it progresses from there.
Gotcha.
So yes, very early on, you are in a dungeon in a sewer, so you know that everything is right with the world.
You get to fight rats?
No, although
No?
I have not fought any rats, because that's the weird thing is like I really like what they've done with the art style in this game, because I don't like Akira Toriyama's art for the most part. I think his character designs are.
It's very distinctive, though.
I mean,
even in the pantheon of Japanese
you can
video
tell
games.
it's him, but
Yeah.
one of the reasons you can tell it's him is because he has 3 faces.
Yeah.
And everybody has the same 3 kinds of hairstyles, and everybody has the same outfits and everything. Like
Yeah.
in the same way that Nomura is in love with belts, this dude is in love with karate gis and like gritting their teeth. You know? But I think the way they've adapted his character design, because you can see like his drawings of them, and they look much more him than what gets translated into these character models. And I think they have balanced like kind of his art style with how the 3D models work, and how the world has kind of this like cartoonish but sort of really realistic texturing work.
It is an odd art style.
It's not like.
It's also kind of barren in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's not like anything else really, but like I think it really works. Like it's pleasing to my eye. It's,
I agree. Yeah,
it's
me too.
bright and it's colorful, but it's also not like quote, as for lack of a better term, kiddie.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look
I haven't heard that for a while.
It doesn't look like some kind of Blue Dragon bullshit,
Kiddie.
which is also him. But like, because Blue Dragon was basically trying to be Dragon Quest. But I think they really found the balance on this. And then it's weird because like the enemies, like the random enemies, are still pretty much these goofy little like, they look like
it's been the most Dragon Quest thing of anything I've seen.
Yeah, they look like things that you would buy a stuffed toy of, basically. But they're also like textured with really high-res texture. So they look really good, but they just look like, you're this kind of semi-realistic looking anime warrior dude, and you whack this platypus guy with a mohawk, and he falls over, and then like all his fat like jiggles when he lands and stuff. I'm just like,
That's kind of cool.
It's cool, but it's like. I feel like I should think it's stupid, but I don't.
Yeah.
Like it all somehow works, and I like looking at it. I like seeing it, and that hasn't been true of a Dragon Quest game for a very long time.
No, that's the Dragon Quest has kind of been the redheaded stepchild at Square Enix for quite a while because it usually only appeals to one market.
Yeah.
And it also happens to be the smallest market.
Right.
So it's been hard for probably Square Enix to convince itself to really put a lot of money into it. But you know what? If it wants to make it a hit in more markets than one, that's exactly what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm. So I enjoy it. I definitely appreciate it.
Have you found any nuance to the combat? You mentioned earlier about how that your party members are kind of AI driven, but
I think it's too soon. Like I only have the one other party member. Like it hasn't opened up to the point that I fought like one or two bosses and something. So like I just got attacks and spells and items now, and there hasn't really been any kind of like fight that I really felt like I had to think about it too hard. It's just basically make sure you're attacking the same person
until their hit points are gone.
And it hasn't been like too grindy. I haven't hit a point where I felt like I need to grind for money to buy a new thing, or I need to like kill a bunch of guys to get level up because I'm not strong enough. I haven't hit any of those gateways yet, which I appreciate. I mean, you never know. The game's so long, anything could happen. The story is not riveting by any means, but like it's pleasant. I guess that's what I'd say. I'd say it's all just very pleasantly reminiscent of the old games without feeling like an old game because it has the production value of a modern game.
Right.
If that's a thing that appeals to you, then and there is a skill tree thing where you can you get skill points and kind of like modify things. And you do have a choice between like when you start out you have like the sword. And you have a great sword, so the sword can do parrying, and the great sword is more powerful but leaves you more open defensively. So you can go through different skill trees for that and kind of like enhance your ability with each of those things. I've been going more standard sword. I'm a sword and shield guy when it comes down to it.
I typically am too.
So it does seem like there's some meat to it eventually. I just haven't gotten there yet. So this is really pretty much first impressions. I mean. It feels a little weird to say that like I've played a game almost 10 hours and I'm still first impressioning it.
But that's Dragon Quest.
If you played Persona 5, that's also true of that game.
Yeah. Yep.
But so far I like it.
Are you gonna stick with it? Are you gonna keep playing?
I am gonna stick with it until something more interesting comes along. But
but maybe at that point there won't be anything else more interesting. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see. Like it's definitely exactly what you see. What you see is what you get. Like if you look at this and you think it looks cool and you have an affinity for old school JRPG stuff, like it delivers that. It delivers the old school JRPG experience with modern visuals and production value. The only thing I could think to say as a caveat to that would be like, when I say old school, I mean it. Like this is. You're walking across. This could, if you could transpose this into a Super Nintendo game and not lose a whole lot.
Right. Yeah.
It's about the experience of seeing like one of these games done up like this, and if that's what you're into, and to me that is enough.
Well, if you're an old school Dragon Quest fan, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Never has the world looked so real or been so fully realized.
Yeah. And it's got, it's also, it's got that level 5 sort of like, the level 5 developer sort of, I think they did work on it, that sort of like Miyazaki style, like kind of old world Europe sort of look to it. And I love that, and I think they've done a really good job with it here. So yeah, it's a bit pretty basic impressions, but like I'm pretty positive on it so far. Even though I said, it did. I was playing it late at night, and I just fell asleep running into a wall. Like it was just.
You woke up and your character was just running into a wall.
Yeah, it was just
I've done that so many times, man. It's so embarrassing too. Like a lot of times, my wife will come out and just like tap me on the shoulder, and I'll wake up, and then she'll be looking at me, and I'll look at myself, and I'll be like, "What have I been doing?
What am I?" Yeah. I don't usually do that. It doesn't happen.
And the look on her face is just like, "You did it again." She's used to it now. After all these years, she's finally used to it. The first time it happened, though, she was not used to it.
She's like, "This is my life.
This is it.
This
is us." All right. Well, look, if you keep playing it, maybe we'll come back in a week or two and we'll give like more detailed impressions on the game. But it sounds like you're recommending it to folks who enjoy JRPGs.
Yeah, like I think. And I just like also that like it's still true to kind of the games I played back 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And like I get tired of the Final Fantasy thing where like they reinvent the wheel every time. Is like just make a damn Final Fantasy game. Like it doesn't have to be like this weird. I think 13 was off the rails, ironically because it's on rails.
Yeah.
And then 15 was basically trash to me. Like I don't want any of that. That doesn't make it Final. It doesn't feel like Final Fantasy. It doesn't look like Final Fantasy.
I would agree with that. I still enjoyed Final Fantasy 15, but you're right. Like if you had shown me that game when I was like 8 years old, and I was like, that's not Final Fantasy.
No, this game is doing the opposite.
It looks amazing. I think my head would explode if you showed me that game when I was 8 years old, but I would definitely even then say that doesn't look like a Final Fantasy.
No, but like this game is doing the opposite of Final Fantasy 15, where it's like it's taking modern tech and saying like we're going to use it to enhance all the things you expect from this series, as opposed to Final Fantasy, which sort of says like we don't know what this is supposed to be anymore, so we're just going to throw shit at the wall until four teenagers get in a convertible.
I mean, how awesome would it be if the next Final Fantasy were just a more generic high fantasy RPG?
Well, I mean, you're kind of going to get that if Final Fantasy VII Remake ever gets made.
Yeah.
But I do think I would love to see them throw it back to like a more Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy VI sort of aesthetic in terms of the world.
Yeah.
Or even 9. I mean, I think Final Fantasy IX you were already at the point where people were kind of, wanting that, and Final Fantasy IX was a throwback to that. And
also, consequently, my last favorite Final Fantasy.
For my money, that's the only. Not only is it the best PS1 Final Fantasy, I think it's the only good Final Fantasy on PS1. I mean, it's not a coincidence that my favorite Final Fantasy of all time is 6. It's not a coincidence
most people,
that the ones that I know most people is 7. Trust me.
Yeah, you're right. I think
they're wrong.
I think most people who know RPGs.
I think most people who weren't 12 in 1997 probably picked 6.
Yeah.
But 9 and 12 are my two favorites of the modern era, because they are more of a throwback to kind of that high fantasy
the brand.
With a little
it's
steampunky there's flying castles and steampunky stuff and mechs and 6, but it still sort of has a grounding in sort of that semi-high fantasy mixed with steampunk, dieselpunk aesthetics.
Absolutely.
Whereas you get as soon as you hit Final Fantasy VII, it's like, wait, so it's just Evangelion now? We're just in the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's still steampunk in Final Fantasy VII.
Sort of, but that city is...
But it's a shell
future.
of what it
you're more... It's more Blade Runner than anything else.
That's a good point, yeah.
So I really do appreciate that this game, that Dragon Quest XI, is not succumbing to that and is sticking to what makes Dragon Quest, and just is using the new power of the hardware to just turn it up to 11, fittingly enough, but still giving you something that's very recognizably Dragon Quest. So
right. There you go. We'll probably have more.
It's not going to convert anybody.
I have a feeling you're going to keep playing it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, like I said, it's very pleasant. You can grind and do whatever you want, or you can move the story forward, and that's fine. You can do some side quests. Like I said, that's probably why I fell asleep. Not because I was bored, but because I was just sort of soothed. It's very nice to play.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about the Nintendo Direct that happened, I guess it's been, 5 days now. One disadvantage for us switching the show to earlier in the week for the end of the year versus a Friday. We could have really knocked us out of the park on Friday right after it happened. But we're a little late on this one, which is a little different for GameFace, but no less important to talk about nonetheless. Matt, we started talking before the show And you seem to not be all that impressed with this Direct.
I was not.
I was, on the other hand, which is good. That always means we're going to have a good conversation about something. Before we start going game by game, I've kind of plucked out the 10 or 12 games that I thought were the most important. What was your general impression of it that kind of soured you on it?
They got nothing for the next, however, like for the rest of the year. Like it's nothing.
Did you expect to see like new games that would come out this
No,
year?
this is more a confirmation of what I expected. but it's just like you're sitting there trying to get me excited about Diablo 3. Go away. Like, come on. Like, there's just no reason for that game to you know. I'm sure someone.
That is not a game that I have
not on
the
your list. I know, but like it's just like it's just like or like Cities Skylines or whatever.
Also
that was
not on the list.
It's just like okay, like
I hear that, but I think that there was plenty of other stuff that they did show that
there's basically two things in the whole thing that I was interested in, and that's it.
All right, well, let's start going through it. The first game we're going to talk about is Luigi's Mansion 3.
That's the first thing I was interested in.
Yeah, and so folks on YouTube, this is the point where the whole screen goes black for this entire topic because if we don't, then Nintendo will flag it. And in fact, one of the games we're going to talk about, we're not even going to show the trailer for it because it's a Game Freak game. And the last time we ran footage of a Game Freak game, they nuked the video, and we got a strike on YouTube. So we're not going to go there. So Advantage, Sifted subscriber. Advantage, Sifted Patreon contributor. You guys are going to get to see it all. Folks on YouTube, it's going to be blacked out. So let's talk about a Luigi's Mansion 3. It's weird. It is a working title right now, but isn't it weird that they're calling it Luigi's Mansion 3?
I don't know, because there's been two of them.
Right, but was it Dark Moon? Is that the subtitle? Yeah. It wasn't called Luigi's Mansion 2.
That was the second Luigi's Mansion game.
Yeah, but I mean, usually if you follow sequential numbers, the second game is called whatever 2. Maybe that's why it's a working title.
Captain America Civil War is the third Captain America movie, but they just don't use numbers.
Yeah.
Using numbers for sequels is out right now.
That's not a thing anymore.
No.
The millennials don't like it.
Marvel movies killed it.
Well, when you have Marvel movies, it'd be like part 18 at this point. So I can understand why they started going for subtitles. Anyway, Luigi's Mansion 3, the Luigi's Mansion franchise coming back from the GameCube era. Were you a fan of the original Luigi's Mansion?
I don't know if I call myself a fan of it, but I did play it and like it. I mean, it was a launch title, so there wasn't much else to play at the time. But like, it was a change of pace, and I'm a Ghostbusters fan, so yeah, I'll take what I can get in that regard. I did not play Dark Moon,
okay,
but I would probably play this.
Here's a cool story, bro. The first time I ever got death threats for being a video game journalist was for Luigi's Mansion.
What did you give it, like an 8?
I gave it an 8.3. And I got death threats, literally.
Oh, no.
Just thousands and thousands of them. From people who had never played it, touched it, didn't matter. Because back then with the GameCube, when I was at GameSpot, we got it way in advance. Our reviews for all the launch games were up like a week and a half or 2 weeks before it ever came out. None of those people had ever played it. And literally, I got death threats. That was my first eye-opener to what the rest of my career was going to be like. And here I am, 20 years later, still getting death threats. So
yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds like a pretty
still getting
fine
death
score.
threats over video. Maybe I should have made a T-shirt that said that. Still getting death threats over video games. I actually really liked Luigi's Mansion. My biggest ding was that it was just too short.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it.
Yeah, I mean, you could finish it in 4 or 5 hours. If you wanted to like 100% it, you could do that in like another hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, it was not a meaty game.
But for that time that I played it, I absolutely adored that game and loved it. It was unlike anything. It still was unlike anything else. After all this time, I mean, there's been a couple games that have tried to mimic it a little bit, but no game has had a vacuum that lets you suck up ghosts. That's for, what was it called? The Poltergust 2000? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then Dr. Egad was like the little dude with the bald head or whatever. I wonder if they don't show him in the trailer, I don't think, though.
No.
I don't know if he comes back.
I don't know. I'm not up on my Luigi's Mansion lore,
Yeah.
so I don't know if he's still around.
Well, I had a lot of fun with Luigi's Mansion. It just ended way too fast, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, this is the big launch game, and this is all we got? They really rushed the GameCube, by the way. I think I should add. If you think about the launch lineup for GameCube, it was not amazing. That was kind of supposed to be...
It had a couple of good things in it. They had Rogue Leader.
Yep.
And Smash was pretty close in there. It wasn't launch, but
Yeah.
remember they had
It was
Rogue
what,
Leader.
like 4 months or 6
a
months
couple
later?
months in.
Yeah.
But they had Rogue Leader, and they had this, and they had Super Monkey Ball, which I won in a raffle on launch night at a GameStop, and I still have never opened.
Really?
Because I had a copy from work.
Oh, right.
But like you could pick any of the launch games, and it was the only one I hadn't pre-ordered that I had any interest in.
It was funny how big Super Monkey Ball got just because there weren't a lot of other options there. I mean, it was just one of those games where like, this isn't bad, and it's big, there's tons of stages, so I'm just going to keep playing this.
Yeah, Rogue Leader was pretty much my jam.
It was the launch jewel, absolutely.
That and Tony Hawk. It was Tony Hawk that came out. I don't remember which Tony Hawk, but there was a Tony Hawk at launch.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was like Downhill Jam, though. No, that was Wii.
It was
Wii
3 or 4. It was maybe 3. I think it was 3.
Yeah. Oh, Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
So Luigi's Mansion 3, it's funny because it looks better, obviously, but it doesn't look that much better. I mean, it's crazy how good that game looked on GameCube back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny, too. The first time they showed Luigi's Mansion for GameCube, that's how it started.
Yep.
With Luigi cracking the door open and then his head poking through with the flashlight. It's like they started it off exactly the same way they showed off the first game. So I'm excited for this. It's a 2019 game. I hope it's longer and deeper than the first game.
I mean, the Nintendo kind of...
And if it's not, I hope they sell it for 30 or 40 bucks.
Right. I mean, the Nintendo Mario tradition now is so like, it's easy to finish the game, but like there's tons of post-game content, so maybe they'll go that route with it.
I'm cool with that.
It feels like they should have the base gameplay and kind of how it all comes together. It feels like they should have the tools to make a whole bunch of crazy stuff with it. So I would like to kind of see them, maybe not to the Mario Odyssey level of 1,000 ghosts or whatever, but maybe, who knows? Like capture 1,000 ghosts if there's 1,000 ghosts in the mansion.
Maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised, but I was really surprised at the lack of interest in this game on SIFTD. Nobody cared. Like, we rate every piece of content as we curate it, and I rated it a 4 out of 5. And maybe my personal tastes were coming into it a little bit there, but I think it's worthy of a 4 out of 5. We don't give a ton of stuff 5 out of 5s. Red Dead stuff is always 5 out of 5 because people just love it, and it does like the best views of anything on the site as far as curation is concerned. But nobody cared about Luigi's Mansion 3. I looked at the data and I was like, wow.
Well, it's not.
And I'm wondering if it's just been so long since the first game. I mean, obviously there's
it's also not really
it's
not an adrenaline pumper, really.
No.
It's like, it's not like one of those things where it's like, oh wow, I've been waiting. It's like a nice to have sort of thing versus like a, well, I was on the fence about Switch, but now it's just sort of it's something to put on the schedule.
Yeah.
But I like the first one. I'll dip into this one probably.
Yeah, I'll definitely play it. I'm really excited for it. Next up, and this is a game I probably wouldn't have included except for the fact that it ended up getting blown out for the next 2 days, and that's Daemon Cross Machina, a game that was debuted at E3 and was hardly a blip on the radar because E3, everything gets swallowed up. And
it was in their E3 Direct.
It was. And I really didn't pay that much attention to it. And even after I watched this trailer in the Direct, I was like, oh, that looks way better than I thought. Then they started putting out chunks of gameplay, all of which you can find on SIFTD, by the way. Just search for the game and it'll pop up. And that's when I started to realize, okay, this game is starting to look like something good. At first I was like, oh, this is some Japanese developer that they signed some deal with to get as much content out as possible. The game is starting to look pretty hot.
Yeah, this is the other one that I'm interested in. I mean, because it's giant robots, but like, it also has enough of a kind of an Earth Defense Force Zone of the Enders look to it.
Well, these little short clips right here are what like got me. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, there's like a skill tree in this game and like upgrades, and it looks like it's more than just a 6-hour mech battling like throwaway game.
Yeah, I'm a little starved for Armored Core. But so maybe this will fill the gap a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one is definitely on my radar. This Luigi's Mansion and this were the only two that really like perked my ears up at all.
Well, you're gonna have fun for the next 30 minutes then. Woo! The next game we're gonna talk about is Animal Crossing Switch, which they didn't show.
Very expected.
Yeah,
people were waiting.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, but people still were wondering like, where the hell is Animal Crossing for Switch?
Yeah.
And we didn't always get is this like CG teaser trailer, which doesn't show the game really at all. In fact, there was another section of the Nintendo Direct that I believe personally actually shows off the in-game Animal Crossing graphics. It was like a little prelude. It might have been the prelude to Isabelle being announced for Smash. I can't quite remember, but it looks like an Animal Crossing game, and they're inside and interiors, and they're walking around talking to each other. I think that actually was a representation of what it looks like. Nintendo actually put a disclaimer on this saying not gameplay footage for this one. Are you excited? Do you care?
I don't.
Are you not an Animal Crossing fan, or are you just burnt out on it at this point?
I played the GameCube one a lot, and I played the first DS one a lot, and that's pretty much enough.
Yeah.
Like I don't need like a
Did you play New Leaf at all?
No. My niece played it a lot.
I
She
played
really liked
New Leaf
it.
for like 80 hours.
Animal Crossing feels,
I hate to admit it.
Animal Crossing feels too much like a job
It's
to me.
a guilty pleasure
Like,
for me, absolutely.
It doesn't move the needle, and like putting another Animal Crossing character in Smash Brothers is weird, but like okay, if that's what you want.
The one I played the least was City Folk. That was the Wii one, right?
Yeah, I heard that was not great. I did not play that.
Well, it had that weird, like, it was like the only way you could get voice chat on Wii, because it came with like that microphone thing.
Yeah.
That weird. Nintendo's so weird. It really does crazy stuff.
Oh, we're getting to the weird.
we're on the way there. I'm excited for Animal Crossing always. Like I said, I played New Leaf for like 80 hours. I don't know what it is about it. Like, I just can get hooked into it, and I'll do the same crap over and over and over again.
Well, it's like a mobile game
not
with
bat an eyelash.
It's a mobile game that isn't trying to rob you, basically.
Well, the irony is that the mobile Animal Crossing has not done well at all.
Because it's too easy to see through it.
Yeah.
It's like if you could just buy another Animal Crossing game and play it without being irritated, basically.
Yeah, I mean it's free, so but yeah, the revenue that's generated so far is only like 40 million.
Yeah, it's no Fire Emblem.
No, I mean I don't think it's even like Mario on mobile.
No.
I think that even Mario did better. And Animal Crossing, like you said, should do very well on mobile.
You'd think, but I think
It's perfect
I think
for it.
part of it is it skews younger.
Yeah.
And part of it is that it's already a time sink, and it's just too easy to see where the microtransactions happen. I think it's a little too transparent.
Too transparent. We're always asking for transparency, except when we're not.
Yeah.
And then, as we mentioned earlier, Isabelle in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It appears that Isabelle is a unique character, not a shadow character.
Yeah. And not an Echo.
Yeah. Which is cool, I guess.
Which means you'll be buying her as DLC. Probably.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this is the character that they would pick.
I mean, they must know what they're doing. Like,
Yeah.
Animal Crossing must
Hard to
have
argue with the
cachet.
results.
So,
Who would you have picked, though?
from Animal Crossing?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Well, if you had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I would pick Tom Nook, because that's who I'd want to hit the most.
It has to be Tom Nook. I mean, I'm shocked that Isabelle is a character that they selected, but it is good that it's not just a carbon copy character, at least. At least they're doing something unique with her.
Yeah, they could have just made her an Echo of the Villager and gotten away with it.
Yep.
But it's cool. Like, I don't know. Doesn't do me any
There's a
good.
rare moment where Matt Kyle says, "I don't know."
Like,
I hardly ever hear you say that.
Like, I'm out of
'Cause
ideas.
usually you do know.
Yeah, but not in this. I mean, there's a point at which, like, okay, cool. Like, I'm just gonna have to go John Oliver on that one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, up next, I think this might actually be the biggest announcement from the entire thing, and that is Final Fantasy Overload on Nintendo Switch.
And everything else, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like this announcement was a big deal at first, and it's kind of been
It's also on Xbox.
diluted a little bit, yeah. But the big deal really is that for the first time ever, Final Fantasy VII is coming to a Nintendo console. The unrequited love between Nintendo fans and Final Fantasy is finally going to come to fruition on Switch. Not only that, obviously Crystal Chronicles, I think we talked about that last week. And then it's then Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition HD, Final Fantasy 9, 10, 2, and 12. All coming to Switch.
Final Fantasy VIII getting left out in the cold.
Yeah, that's a little strange, I thought.
Final Fantasy VIII is sort of the redhead stepchild of the modern era Final Fantasies, I think, aside from the MMOs. And it is pretty dumb.
World of Final Fantasy also.
But it's better than 7. So
So a couple mobile games coming to Switch in addition to the console ports.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Like, if Square's got them, might as well do it.
I mean, for a lot of people, Switch is a mobile platform. So it absolutely makes sense. And those games aren't terrible.
No. I won't play them.
I thought you played World of Final Fantasy.
I didn't play that. I didn't play the mobile thing.
Right.
I played the console one. That's
right.
not
Is that not what's going to...
No, that's
the
World of Final
take.
Fantasy Maxima or something like that.
Oh.
It's a different thing.
That sucks. What do you think about this, though? Do you think it moves the needle for Switch at all?
No.
Or is it just like fans finally saying, thank God?
I think it's just like, there's a whole contingent of people that just seem to want everything imaginable, like, on the go.
Yeah.
And like, here's most of the last 20 years Final Fantasy content, like, on a portable.
Which is pretty
Go
cool.
for it. Yeah.
I mean, this is the only place you're going to get it.
Well, except everywhere else. But
Well, I mean, mobile-wise.
Mobile,
like, you
I
don't
guess.
take it on the go with you.
Well, I mean, you can probably take, like, some horrible, like, stripped-down iOS version of some of them eventually, but...
And I mean, if this
I've
really
not
the
been
Switch...
impressed by Square's iOS and Android work. I mean, Final Fantasy VI is a travesty on that, so it's better to have these straight-up ports.
And if the footage that we've seen is really Switch footage, the games look pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, most of them are for like
real
2
old,
generations ago, but
they better look good.
yeah. And they just redid 12 as Zodiac Age.
Yes.
Is Switch getting the remade version?
I think so. Yeah.
It is?
Well, because
Okay.
from what I saw there, I think it said Zodiac.
Oh,
Age,
it did.
So, like, I can't imagine you'd release the old version. I mean, that would be horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be able to tell by looking at the screen because that game does not look good anymore.
Yeah. Talk about late to the party.
Yeah.
Nintendo is really late to the party with these
But
games.
that's sort of like the Switch story at this point. I mean, most of the stuff coming out that isn't first party is years old.
Yeah.
Like, they're taking advantage of the fact that people either want these portable versions of things, or they are Nintendo-only gamers who haven't played any of this stuff before.
Yeah.
So
It really feels like more of a bone to long-running Nintendo fans than anything else.
well, it's more content. Like, the first party content is starting to dry up, so they got to keep stuff in the pipeline, and this is a good way to do it.
If Nintendo had to subsidize Square Enix for this, was it worth it?
I think it depends if it gets them Kingdom Hearts HD collection on the Switch next year.
I'm guessing that's probably going to
I would have to think they're building to that.
Yeah.
Because if it can run on the PS3, it can run on the Switch.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if you'll ever get Kingdom Hearts 3, but
Doubtful.
it feels like you could get everything else on it,
Yeah.
which would be smart.
Although we are going to talk about something here in a little bit that could open up avenues for everything on Switch. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe.
Woo.
Yeah, I mean, they had to get a Super Mario Brothers game on Switch, right?
I mean, look, if it's exclusive to Wii U, it should come to the Switch.
Yep.
Like,
What's
I don't care what it
left
is
at this point?
well, 3D World,
Right.
Tokyo
Mirage.
Sessions, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
There's a game by Inafune, right? What was it called? That weird, like...
Devil's Third.
No.
No, that was
The weird, like, isometric, like...
Wonderful 101.
yeah.
Yeah, that should come.
That game definitely needs to come to Switch, because that game was really good, and nobody bought it.
I think it will. That's another Platinum game. I think it will come. Wonderful 101 is mentioned in these conversations all the time, so I would be surprised if they don't. I mean, look, if Bayonetta can come, Wonderful 101 can. Yeah, I would, if it's on the Switch, if it's on the Wii U, like, and it was a Wii U exclusive, it should be on the Switch eventually. Like, I don't see. I mean, maybe not Devil's Third, but
No,
like,
I think that's one you can
but
pass
for the
on.
most part, I think it should all come over.
I'm sure Itagaki pitched it. It was promptly shut down. No thanks.
But it should all come over.
But there aren't many
also,
left. I mean,
no.
we tried to think of it, and we came up with like 3 or 4.
I think the Zelda HD remaster should come over.
Yeah.
Because what do you got to lose? Like, you're saving them from Wii U obscurity,
Yeah.
and you're giving Switch owners something else to play.
Yep.
There's no downside to it.
Yep, you're right.
And I would certainly buy Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD again.
I will say, though,
on
that
the Switch.
Super Mario Bros. U is probably the last game I really cared about coming as a deluxe game.
I mean, look, part of this is selfish in the sense that I would like to no longer have a reason to keep my Wii U hooked up.
Yeah. I put mine away long ago.
I still got mine out because there's still a thing in the back of my head that maybe one day I'll finish Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
And then it'll just come out for Switch, and
then I'll just forget it.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is. I mean, I would prefer World. I don't think either of them are stellar, but I definitely think World is better.
I think both of them are middle of the road entries in those franchises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly, what I'd prefer is a remaster of Galaxy 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But
Super Mario 3D World is probably my least favorite Mario 3D platformer.
I like it better than Sunshine.
I don't. I don't like it because it takes away the freedom of being just an open environment you can run around in. Like, it's all kind of controlled and almost like 2.5D a lot of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it is an extrapolation of a 3DS game to some degree. But I like it. I prefer I hate Mario Sunshine. I really do.
There's something to me therapeutic about the water gun. And I get the same thing from playing Splatoon. And it's just that tech brought over for Splatoon.
Yeah.
But it's just, there's something about just painting the ground. I don't know what it is. It just flips this like dopamine trigger in my brain. I love it. And Sunshine obviously was the first game to do that. So it has a special place in my heart. Next up, here was a pleasant surprise, but not really because it had leaked already.
Yeah,
Katamari Damacy coming to Switch and also to Xbox, I think, as well. Or PC.
PC.
Yeah. For those of you youngins,
yeah,
here's a slap to the face with reality. This game was a smash hit.
Yep.
Back when it came out on the PlayStation 2. It was a PS2 exclusive.
Oh, yeah. Also, this game is 14 years old.
Yep. And still one of the most innovative games that was in the entire Direct.
There's a thing in this game that I'm surprised has not become more of a meme. Where, like, between the levels, you get these weird cutscenes with these kids.
Yeah.
And early, I think it's like second or third level, like, it cuts to one of the kids, and, like, I don't remember what the context is, but the basically the punchline of the scene is the kid says, "Rich people sure are different." And I'm like, how is that not constantly quoted as, like, a GIF or something? Like, in this day and age.
That's on you, Kyle. You gotta make the GIF. You gotta make the meme. I'll retweet it.
But this is it's a good. I still think the first one is probably the best one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this is I'm glad to see this kind of moving into.
Yeah, for those of you who are wondering what the hell is going on, the whole game is basically you just roll a ball around that collects everything it rolls over.
Then the size of the ball determines what it can collect, and eventually you're rolling up planets. Like you start at like the size of like a dust ball. And eventually you get up to like planetary, so you're rolling up solar systems.
Yeah, not plants, like planets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it is the story basically treats the entire thing as though it's completely normal.
Right.
Like that's one of the reasons it works is like...
I just realized Sam is seeing Katamari Damacy for the first time in his entire life. And he is like, what the hell is this?
This came out when you were what, like 11?
Yeah. It's so great.
I remember when I first put this in, I was Blair Butler was my roommate at the time because we just moved here from San Francisco, and she was in the shower when I turned it on, and the opening like thing played, and I stopped. I just turned it off and waited in a completely quiet apartment until she came back out, and I'm like, Blair, come in here. You need to see what I just put into the PlayStation. And she's like, what? And she turned it on. I turned it back on and play. And she's like, oh my god! Like she was just like, thank you for waiting for me for this. Like it was just like one of those.
Blair was the lead writer.
Blair was our writer. She does comic book stuff and did Nerdist stuff for a long time after G4. But
now she works on Talking Dead, doesn't she?
Not anymore. She's doing some screenwriting.
Oh, that's great.
You'll see some.
She has like a film coming up. She mentioned that last time I talked to her.
And so. But she loves like the weird nonsensical stuff, and I remember seeing this when I first put this in. I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna have to wait until Blair can see this.
There are certain games when we worked at XPlay, as soon as you'd see them, you'd know who the person is that should produce the review for them, and this was one of them.
Same with what was it? One of her best, I think, was she did the Terminator 3.
Oh,
Rise of the
good.
Machines review for when we were up in San Francisco, and that was one of the best of that era.
Yep, absolutely. So, hey, this is great. Katamari Damacy on Switch. It also is a great handheld game. Should work perfectly in that environment. It looks like it has gyro controls, and they're actually doing a little something for the Switch version.
Yeah, it's a good bite-sized
Don't
sort of
sleep on
thing.
this, people. I know you may have never heard of this game. You're like, this looks stupid. It's not stupid. It is stupid awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It is one of the most off-the-wall, avant-garde games I've ever played.
This is like one of those weird indie games before there were weird indie games.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Now this would come from like Devolver or some crap.
Yeah.
But it's Bandai Namco, I think?
It was Namco, yeah.
Well, actually, back then it was just called Namco. Actually, it was called Namco Bandai then, and then they
Right.
flipped the names around for whatever dumb reason. But this game is awesome. Put it on your radar right now if you're a Switch owner. Next up, the game we can't show, which is called Town, which is Game Freak's new game for Switch. The trailer was only like 20 seconds long anyway. Looks like a turn-based RPG. The thing about it is it's an epic RPG that takes place in just that village. So that environment they show you in the trailer, and you can go on SIFTD and you can watch it. Just search for Town. It'll come up right away. But that town, that village that they show, is where the whole epic RPG takes place. I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know. South Park already did it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like twice.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a different tone than South Park.
A slightly different.
Yeah. But it's good to see Game Freak like spreading its wings.
Branching out a little bit.
We
yeah.
got that. What was it called? Tumbo the Elephant or something? Not long ago.
Was that them?
Yeah.
Tembo the Badass Elephant?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they've been spreading their wings a little bit, trying some new stuff, which
That was
is
a
cool.
Sega game.
Yeah, Sega published it, and Game Freak developed it. At least to the best of my knowledge, that was Game Freak. But again, we can't show it to you because they'll flag it and they'll take the show down before we can even publish it. So you have to go on SIFTD to check it out. It looks pretty cool. Definitely not Pokemon-like. It looks more like a traditional turn-based RPG.
I'll keep an eye on it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yep, they didn't show much. But anytime Game Freak does something, I pay attention. Next up, Civilization 6. This is maybe the one game I should have cut off of this list. Does that move the needle for you at all? I think playing Civ on the go is pretty cool. I mean, Sam
cool,
plays it
but,
on his
like,
mobile phone all the time.
I wouldn't want to play Civilization without a mouse. Basically.
Yeah,
Like,
that is a tough ask.
it's
Although
a
with a
hard
touchscreen,
translation.
that's the next best thing. Ish. It's also weird too that the trailer that they published for this announcement is like not. It doesn't show any gameplay.
Yeah.
But two, it also makes it looks like it's almost like a special version or something.
Yeah, well, I guess because it probably includes some of the DLC stuff to the point that it's different from any of the other releases they've done. So, I don't know. I'm sure there's like little quality of life things they've added to it to make it work better.
I love Civ. I love Civ
console.
6. If they send me a code for this, I will be happy. I won't buy it because I already have it on PC. But this is one of those games where if they send me a free code, I'll be happy that I got it because I think this is it's turn-based, so playing it on the go is perfect for that. It's also easy to walk away from and not come back for a few days, and it's easy to figure out what the hell's going on. I think it's a good fit for that platform, provided it runs okay, which I'm not convinced that that's going to be the
I
case.
hope it was because it doesn't look too good.
Yeah.
It looks way better on my PC.
Yeah. Well, it always is. Everything is always going to look way better on your PC.
Yeah, but this is a notable downgrade. How old is Civ? So is this 3 years old?
I don't even think it's that old yet.
2 years old?
Yeah, that's about right, I think. But I'm excited for this. Again, it's just filling in the blanks in the software library for Switch. There's no other game like this on Switch
Yet.
yet.
I mean, they got City Skyline coming.
Right. Which
More
was
of a
also,
city builder than a Civ builder. But
Right. Which was also, well, this is like a 4X strategy game more than like
Yeah.
a building game. But there's a dearth of that stuff on Switch. Like, there are still lots of genre gaps to fill on Switch. And this does it, I mean, not only does it fill the gap, it fills it with like one of the best like examples of the genre. So I think a lot of people would do very well to buy this game for Switch. Because a lot of people, maybe they have a PS4 and a Switch, they don't have a PC. And this isn't out for consoles, is it? Civ 6?
if it is, I didn't notice.
I don't think it is. I think this is the first console release for it. So, kind of a big deal. Next up, and this is something that could bear fruit for a long time to come, Assassin's Creed Odyssey Cloud version Now, we got Resident Evil 7, I believe, cloud version for Switch already, and we were skeptical of that.
And this is only in Japan so far?
Only in Japan right now. I also wonder if this is actually footage from the cloud version of the game.
This looks like
It looks like the trailer for the console version. It looks like the same trailer that we've already seen.
Yeah, I don't think this is specific to...
Which is disappointing, because you want to see how it's going to look and run on a cloud-based version. Still, the fact that Ubisoft, in my opinion, checked out the technology and thought and deemed it worthy to run a big IP, a big game. This isn't even like the last Assassin's Creed. This is this one, the one that's coming up. That seems like a pretty big deal. Like, if Ubisoft is showing faith in streaming tech like this...
Ubisoft has always been a big supporter of Nintendo, so it doesn't really shock me that they'd be in on this. I
mean, I guess there we're seeing it running.
I mean, again, that's only useful if you, A, are in Japan, and B, don't have any other platforms that game runs on.
Yeah.
It's kind of a neat trick, I guess. But it's irrelevant to me.
I'm just wondering if that tech
is probably irrelevant to a lot of us, because it doesn't sound like they're bringing that stuff here at any time soon.
I'm just wondering if eventually that is going to happen, though.
Maybe.
And I mean, that could just crack open the floodgates for Switch to have every game.
It would be an interesting solution, although it also doesn't really solve it in a way that, like, it's counteractive to the excuse that's usually given, or the explanation that's usually given about why someone wants something on the Switch because of the portability.
But let's be honest, that's
now it's
a flimsy excuse.
It is. But like, if that's your reasoning, then like apparently you only mean portable to the other room.
Well, the other thing too is you won't be able to play this if you're out and about.
Right.
You can only play it when you're at home and you're docked and you're hardwired, because trying to play this on Wi-Fi, whoo.
Yeah, it would not be.
I can't even imagine
not be
what
great.
kind of an experience that would be. I mean, you're also talking about Assassin's Creed with counters that have 4 or 5 frames that you have to get your counter in there, like.
And like, I'm not, like at that point, I'm like, okay, I have a PS4 Pro, I have an Xbox One X, I have a PC. Why would I play this on the Switch?
Yeah.
Through a streaming system.
Oh yeah, you and I would never do it. But if you're a Switch owner, this is.
But literally only a Switch owner.
This is like the sun peeking up over the horizon and the first beams of light starting to come across the landscape.
It doesn't solve anything, I don't think. Especially since if you're not in Japan.
No, I'm just saying it's hope.
Hope for what, though? Like
that you can play these games that you would never be able to play.
Unless you just buy another damn console. Like, I just
$500, it's $400.
Yeah, well, it's such a weird, like, it's such a weird situation of like, well, I spent $300 on this thing that isn't powerful enough to do any of the modern shit, and now I'm going to hope against hope that someone figures out some kind of weird streaming solution for these games that like may or may not even come to America in that form.
I mean, I am right there with you. I always recommend that instead of somebody buying one console and building up that library, which ultimately will have tons of filler games in it, don't buy those filler games and buy the other console and then buy the exclusives for that console. I think it's way smarter to have a library of console exclusives and 3 consoles than to have one console and like 200 games. Like, to me, there's no comparison. Like,
well, it's also
the better strategy is to have more hardware.
If this is so important, maybe make the console more powerful.
Yeah.
Like this is just like doing a weird end run around the fact that because they wanted this to be handheld, it had to be a weak piece of hardware in comparison to the other systems on the market.
Yeah.
And Nintendo's doing just fine not competing with those two systems.
Yep.
Like, they are found their location, they found their niche, they've found this, like, kind of carved out this little space where they don't have any competition. I don't think they're ever going to have any competition because Microsoft doesn't care, and Sony learned its lesson with the Vita. So I don't think anyone's going to horn in on that. And, like, they should just be embracing it. And they are, but this is sort of this weird sort of side thing where it's like, oh, we can also run modern stuff. It's like, no, you can't. Like,
no.
you can do it in a very specific...
It's a parlor trick.
You can do it in a very specific situation with a very specific connection at a very specific time in a very specific country. And, you know, I don't know. I don't really get the point.
I wouldn't be surprised if
beyond
Nintendo...
having it as a bullet point of like, look, we have this too. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, technically, sure.
I would not be surprised if Nintendo is looking into trying to get that tech overseas.
Well, they'd have to be, but it's like that's a whole different animal. I mean, the size and slowness of our internet connections here makes it a very, you know, and I think Microsoft is also, you know, Microsoft's also on on that problem, and PlayStation Now has been trying to solve the problem for years.
Yep.
With varying degrees of success. I don't know. I just haven't had many good experiences with streaming cloud stuff to the point that I'd look at this as anything I would ever have any
Again, you
interest
start
in.
talking about the counter stuff in Assassin's Creed. I don't know how you'd ever pull that off on a streaming game, but it would be very frustrating to play.
I mean, if you're using something like the tech that Xbox was describing, where like basically you're literally loading parts of the game onto the hard drive and running it from there and streaming and unstreaming as you need it, like that is probably a pretty effective way to do it. But that's also a very proprietary technology, I would think. Yeah. And I don't know if what we're seeing here, we don't really know anything about what the Switch is doing here, if it's on that level.
Yep.
Because if it is on that level, now you're using that internal memory for a whole different thing. And it's probably possible, but it's a tech trick that they would have to work out for themselves.
Yep.
If they pull it off, it'll be real interesting, though. For people that prefer to play docked, it would make it an interesting conundrum of, is this how you want to play these games? Especially, I mean, for some people, I'm sure all they'd have to do is throw in like a Link outfit for the Assassin's Creed guy to wear.
One thing I did find interesting, though, is at the end of that trailer, when they show the person actually playing it, they're playing it in handheld mode.
Yeah. I'm sure you can do it with Wi-Fi. It's just not going to work very well.
I found that pretty interesting, though. They don't actually show them playing.
Well, yeah, that's a simulated picture. That's not like a real shot of someone playing.
Oh, you think it's fake?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%. There's no question. That's like footage that they just stuck. I'm sure that's just like a standard template they have of someone playing or whatever.
The hands are in motion, aren't they?
Yeah. But like you can still slap something on a blank screen like that.
You have to go frame by frame and like move it.
Oh, it used to be, After Effects is pretty magical.
No, you're right. It is. Yeah. And then last and this, I'm having problems understanding how you're so down on this Direct. There's so much stuff in it.
There's a lot of stuff in it. I just don't think it's very interesting.
Okay. The last thing we're going to talk about is Nintendo Online,
and this is just horse shit.
Which launches, we're going to go into this, which launches tomorrow, or actually in about 3 hours, I guess, probably. If you're on the East Coast, it's actually coming very soon. I'm guessing it's going to launch at midnight everywhere. Launches tomorrow, tonight, depending on where you live or whether you're going to be awake or not. $20 a year. That was confirmed. They talked more about the NES stuff, the library that's going to be there. Are you happy with what they're going to offer in the library?
No.
No?
I don't care. Like, the NES stuff is old and busted to me. Like, I've got 5 versions of each of those things.
Well, they also just released, like, the NES Classic.
Right.
It's like you just sold that console to tens of millions of people.
And, like, it's the fact that they don't have any other system, no Super Nintendo, no GBA, no any N64. I mean, I didn't expect N64, but they're not even, like, giving a hint that might be on the horizon.
Yeah.
I don't like the check-in thing. Like, that's the same.
We'll talk about that in a second.
It's just... I mean, it's not like it costs a ton of money, so it's not like you're gouging me for it, but it's just like there's nothing on that NES list that catches my attention.
Are you going to be a sucker for those NES controllers?
No. Well, because the problem is they only work with the NES games.
Nah.
Like if you could use them for other stuff, like I would probably be more
is that true? They only work with the NES games?
That's what I read.
I didn't know that. I thought that they were just
they are limited,
Bluetooth controllers.
No, they are limited to this. Like I'm sure someone will hack them out to work on PC or whatever. But like it's not like you can use the NES controllers to like play like an indie game or something with it. Because like I would be interested in that. Like if to play something that I think would require a D-pad or something.
Yeah.
But apparently they are limited to the NES games only.
I was not aware of that. So $20 NES games. The caveat is, and this was not announced in this trailer or in the Nintendo Direct. There's 2 caveats. First caveat you mentioned is that the NES games require a check-in once a week. If you do not connect your Switch to the internet once per week, you lose all those NES games. That is crazy.
Yep.
And
it's also what
bullcrap.
Microsoft was going to do,
right,
and got roasted for.
right.
But apparently it's okay because Nintendo's
doing it. Yeah, that is a
like,
huge...
there's no reason you shouldn't be able to just continue to play the NES games you've gotten off this thing interminably. And the reason you'd have to check in is to get the new ones that are up or whatever, to upload your data or score stuff or whatever. That's fine. But like the idea that they will disable them if you don't check in after a certain amount of time.
What happens when you go on vacation for 10 days?
Exactly.
You're supposed to leave your console turned on and like just sit there and suck up juice while you're gone. Like,
well, no, you gotta go. I'm sure if you came home and turned it on, it would log in and you're fine.
Right.
But like, if you're on vacation, you better hope there's Wi-Fi, I guess, where you're going.
You mean to take it with you and check in on Wi-Fi wherever you...
On your check-in day.
Do you think anyone at Nintendo of Japan touches any other piece of electronics that exists on the planet?
Well, do you remember?
I think in some ways that pays dividends because Nintendo does stuff others don't. But in cases like this, it just seems like they're completely ignorant and oblivious to what the consumer expects.
Well, there was I think that's true, and I think it's correct because several years ago there was a guy he was doing some interview or something, and basically he had been part of like a group that was consulting. I think they were like third-party publishers consulting with Nintendo on what the online service should be on the Wii U, and they were literally talking to the developers at Nintendo about what this should be and what we want, and they kept referring back to PSN and Xbox Live features because Xbox Live had dominated that the Wii generation, and that was where they were trying to like kind of say like, oh, we want this to be like this, like on PSN, and this like, and eventually like Nintendo management came back to them and said, please stop comparing things to Xbox Live and PlayStation Network because none of our developers have ever used those. And it's like, well, there's your frickin' problem, people. Like, how do you make anything without knowing what the competition's doing? And I know they don't consider them competition, but they're doing the same thing. Like, just because I'm not making a horror movie doesn't mean I shouldn't take some lessons from Halloween.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's it was like at once it was mind-boggling, and at the same time it was like that explains so much about the Wii U.
Absolutely. And here we are.
So I think that is still a problem they have. They just don't want to compare themselves to others out of a belief that they know how to do what they want to do, and that isn't necessarily what everyone else is trying to do. But when it comes to online stuff, like there's a certain level of expectation, and Nintendo just never meets it.
This is definitely one case where somebody else knows way better.
Yeah.
Another caveat, if you let your subscription expire, so say next year rolls around, you decide you don't want to re-up, one of the biggest features from Nintendo Online, the ability to upload your saves to the cloud, is wiped out. If you do not resubscribe a year from now, or say you're on a monthly plan, because they do have like a monthly plan, and you drop for a month, all your cloud saves are gone.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think the whole cloud save thing is annoying because, yes, like PlayStation Network, to use cloud saves, you have to be a PlayStation Plus subscriber. But if I didn't want to be a PlayStation Plus subscriber, I could also just copy my saves onto a USB stick.
Right.
And Nintendo will not let you copy your saves in any other way, which is like you're basically holding save backup for ransom behind a paywall. And that's another thing that they should be getting roasted for, but they're not because they're Nintendo. And because apparently $20 a year is so cheap, we don't care if someone's ripping us off. So that's all ridiculous. I feel like this will not be, I mean, the thing if your subscription runs out, like for me, it's like, what if my credit card changes and I forget?
Right.
Isn't that's not the same thing on file.
I mean, that happened to me this past year with PSN.
Now my guess
because my PSN turns over the holidays, and I was still back on the East Coast when it expired. I got back, they're like, "Oh, you're expired." I tried to like go on, and I was like, "Oh my god," and everything's fine. I pay it. Everything's still there. All my games from PlayStation Plus are still there.
Now I'm guessing they will add in some kind of grace period. PlayStation Plus is something like 6 months. If you desubscribe, you got like 6 months before your saves are erased. I imagine they will either add a grace period of at least a month, or they will do a thing where like that the Pokemon Pokemon Deposit Center or whatever. You know, the thing on 3DS where like you pay like $5 a year to like store all your extra Pokemon. Yeah. Like that thing starts bugging you like a month before your subscription runs out. Like popping stuff up saying like, hey, like you got to renew this.
That helps.
So I would say it's not. I don't think they're just going to go. It runs silent until like the day comes and like, whoops, your saves are all gone. I'm sure they will bug you with like pop-up messages or something. I'm sure they have a plan for that, and because of the outcry over this, there will probably be some grace period added to the post-lapsing thing, and they'll solve it that because that's an easy fix.
Yeah,
but it is a little weird that like
that's their initial
that
intention.
even made it to the you know, no one like Reggie in the meeting wasn't like, hey,
like if they could get away with it, they would get away with it.
Yeah, just sad. An idea. Maybe we shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about the fact that if you pay the $20 per year, you get access to exclusive Nintendo merch?
I didn't know that.
Yes. So there's a controller or something? I can't remember. I should totally remember. Thing? There's some piece of hardware that only people who subscribe have the ability to purchase. I think it was actually towards the end there where they showed like that gold block or whatever. But yeah, you get exclusive access to Nintendo products if you pay the $20 per year. Stuff that only you can buy if you're paying, that consequently you could probably buy and then take on eBay and sell it for God's
well, I guess that's how the NES controllers work.
Is that what it is? The NES
That's what Vincent's saying in the chat is you have to be a subscriber to buy the NES
there
controllers.
You go. That's what it is. How do you feel about that?
I don't care.
You don't care?
I mean, it's kind of shitty.
Are you going to get Nintendo Online tomorrow? Or tonight?
Yeah.
You are?
Well, because I want to back my frickin' save up. Like, I got 100 hours in Zelda. I don't want to lose that if the Switch goes bad.
So are you paying $20 a year for cloud save?
Yeah.
That's burly.
I wouldn't if I could copy the damn save to the SD card, but Nintendo's stuck in 2002, so here we go.
Well, also the fact that I had to buy this crazy
Actually, in 2002,
expensive...
I would have just been able to buy a frickin' memory card.
Right.
Which, I mean, technically, I guess that's kind of the same thing.
It is. Yeah.
$20 for a memory card, $20 for a cloud save.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know...
the memory cards weren't free.
We also got to remember, we both had to go out and buy these crazy expensive micro SD cards. Otherwise, our hardware had like 30 gigs in it, not even after the OS takes it up. So I've already spent a gob of money on this micro SD card that I can't save my saves to?
Yeah.
Why would Nintendo let me have a memory card 51 for GameCube that I can take wherever the hell I want? And now all of a sudden, no.
I had a memory card 256.
Right. Remember when those came out, boy? Yeah. 5.
Never run out of Animal Crossing room again.
Literally was like a game changer when that thing came out. It was black, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the 51s were gray and
still have it.
256 was black. I don't know where all my stuff is, honestly. I have no clue. So, overall impressions of Nintendo Online?
Garbage,
$20,
but necessary.
$20.
At least it's only $20.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I'll pay that for spread out across a year to have backups of my saves. Like, I wish the NES thing was more of an incentive, but like, there's not. I mean, maybe I'll play some River City Ransom when that hits.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that I thought was surprising is there's no Castlevania on the schedule because it's like they got all this Castlevania stuff happening.
Going on.
They got the Netflix show, and like I figured there would be something.
There's free shoulder marketing just sitting there to promote it, but yeah, not going to happen.
Like if you really got to put out a bunch of NES games, that's one of the series I'd play again.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've wrapped up the Nintendo Direct, what letter grade would you give that Direct?
That's like a D.
Wow.
I don't care about any of it except Luigi's Mansion and maybe Demon Ex Machina. Like that's kind of a wait and see, but it sure is up my alley, so it's on my radar.
I give it like an A- B+.
Wow.
Yeah. Several games that I care about, several genre fillers, several stuff that Nintendo fans have been waiting literally decades for.
It's just nothing here. It's just... I mean,
well, we just talked about it for 45 minutes, and I cut half of the content from the Direct.
Yeah, but it's like... It's all stuff I've played before. It's all stuff I already own on other things.
I just don't know what you expected. I mean, did you expect them to debut 6 brand new exclusive games? Like, no. They debuted 3.
I'm just not... It's just irrelevant to me. Like, I'm not
You're
interested.
a tough customer with Nintendo, I think.
Well, because they're always a day late and $1 short when it comes to anything that isn't first party. Like their first party stuff is the reason I own the system. I have every indie game they release on this system. I have it 2 years ago on the PC or on the PS4. Civilization 6, I've had that for years. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I'm going to get that on an actual console that runs it natively. Like,
but you got to realize they did just like debut several first-party exclusives, and it's just September. When was the last time Sony showed some new first-party exclusives?
E3?
Did they show a new one at E3?
I can't remember. They only did the 4
It might
or
have been
whatever.
like 2 years since Sony showed a single exclusive first-party game for the first time.
Yeah, when that comes out, it's Spider-Man and God of War. When this comes out, it's Animal Crossing again. So
I think you're being hard on them. But anyway.
I am being hard on them, but it's because they got nothing for the rest of the year, and they're riding everything on a Pokemon game and Smash Brothers, and it's probably going to work out okay for them. But
financially, it will.
Financially, sure, but it's like, I haven't touched that thing since Octopath Traveler came out, and I'm probably not going to touch it again until Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone there. I think a lot of people are.
There's nothing. I mean, some of this stuff looks cool for 2019, but
it's 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so it's time for our trailer of the week. As all of you regulars on our chat know, it's time for you to get your questions into the chat for Matt and I to answer. Following the Nintendo theme, the trailer of the week this week is for the PC version of...
That's a good point, Gohan Rage. Where the hell is Yoshi?
Oh, they showed it.
Did they show that?
Yeah. They gave it his final name to crafting something or other.
So it's not Flippin'
Nope,
Island?
it's not, unfortunately. Yes, called Yoshi's
I think I came into the direct.
Crafting
I think I tuned into the
Adventure.
direct like right as that was halfway through.
They showed it. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was the same thing.
It looks fun. Like, it has this, and I should have mentioned it, actually. I think he's maybe asking why the hell aren't we talking about it, and he's right. We should have talked about it. Because they finally kind of showed the unique element of the game, which is like it's a perspective, like a trick on like perspective. Like, you can flip the world like side to side. It actually... The gameplay looks better than I expected it to. The game itself looks like a traffic cone vomited. Like, dude, that is one of the ugliest games I've ever seen. It is just heinous.
I think that's maybe why I was confused by because like when I
it looked like a 3DS game.
Yeah, it looked like that must be some old thing they're bringing over.
Oh, they've tried to add like fur shading to it and all this stuff, and it's just not a good looking game. I think it might be fun to play, but yeah, it doesn't look good. Good call, Gohan. We should have talked about it.
No
Absolutely.
Epic Yarn.
Nope. Which was another announcement. It's coming to 3DS.
Sure.
Epic Yarn. There's like some subtitle there. Nintendo's subtitles are getting like biblically long.
Maybe that'll be like Yoshi's Mansion Hotel Stay Transylvania 5,000.
Junior Bowser's Journey. Bowser Jr.'s Journey. Yeah, that was another game that they announced, by the way. So anyway, our trailer of the week is for a game that at least I personally tie very closely to Nintendo, and that game is Killer 7. Killer 7 is coming to PC. It's from Suda51. It was part of the Capcom 5, which was a selection of 5 games from Capcom that were supposed to be exclusive to GameCube.
Which ended up being like 3. Was it 3 or 4?
I think it was just 2.
Was it only the 2?
Maybe no 1. I think at this point there's only 1 game that was left exclusive, and that was Piano.
Well, I mean, it even
Piano
came out.
3. Well, they all came out but 1.
Well, yeah, Phoenix.
Dead Phoenix never came
did
out.
not come out.
The rest of them came out. Piano 3's bad.
Yeah, well, so it's Piano 3, Resident Evil 4, Killer 7.
Killer 7 was the remake part of that?
I don't think so.
No.
That was later.
Yeah.
These were all kind of weird.
They all were.
Like Resident Evil 4 wasn't weird, but it was weird.
Was Beautiful Joe one of the Capcom 5? Was it?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah. But every one of those games, except for Piano 3, has been released for other platforms at this point.
Piano 3 was nothing except like somebody.
It was terrible.
Somebody spent a long time animating her butt.
That
was pretty much it.
I think Capcom basically swindled Nintendo on that one.
A little bit.
It's like, yeah, we'll get you 5 games. Here's one.
Here's
Kinda. Sure. Of those games, Killer 7 was one of my favorites. Very stylized. It's really where Suda51 that was like his breakout moment for the most part. It's a game I think he's most remembered.
If you can call anything he does a breakout moment.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's sort of the place where everybody's like, oh, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also my profile picture on my blog page on SIFTD. It has been since launch. I love my banner image. So anyway, here it is, the first trailer for the PC version of Killer 7.
Garcian, relax.
There's an important message for you.
Ah, yes. An old friend is trying to bring down a country. Son of a bitch.
Our information tells us that there's 14 of them.
And they're all for hunting.
Keep one alive so we can ask who the boss is.
Shit! There's more than 14. Those bastards are breeding. This is too easy. Collateral shot! You bastard!
There you go, folks. Killer 7.
Don't think you know anything about what that game's about by watching that. By the
No,
way.
you don't. I highly recommend playing that game. It's not a great playing game, but it's a great game to experience.
Yeah, it's also like it was one of those games I think that people like played and were like, wow, Nintendo let this be on their system. Like it's
There's some
violent and
dodgy
monstrous
themes
and crazy.
in there.
I mean, yeah, it's I mean, that was kind of the GameCube theme, and to some degree, I mean, you also had Eternal Darkness was out of character for them at the time. Hell, Luigi's Mansion was a little out of character for him at the time,
which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It really was kind of out of step.
It was actually kind of a great period because like GameCube underperformed so drastically that like it felt like Nintendo was like, let's just try whatever we got to try to like get the attention back on us, and they ended up having some really good stuff on the system as a result.
Yeah,
it didn't matter.
Desperate
but, like,
Nintendo is the best Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
in my opinion.
Well, look what Desperate Nintendo just gave us is a hit system.
Yep, you're right. All right, let's get.
They
to
generally
some
don't screw up twice in a row. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's one from Mike's Q. I'm not sure I know what he's talking about. Maybe you do. What is your take on Tom Raider versus the Uncharted games?
I think it means Tomb Raider.
Oh.
Tom Brady versus the Uncharted games.
What I really thought was that like he just misspelled someone's name or whatever. Okay, what is your take on Tomb Raider versus the Uncharted games? In my opinion, Uncharted has better character story, but Tomb Raider has better gameplay. I like to play Tomb Raider, but I like to watch Uncharted.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think that assessment's pretty accurate.
I think Tomb Raider is more fun to play, but I care more about what happens narratively in Uncharted.
Yeah.
Not in 4, but
here's one thing I would say though. I would say the narrative in Uncharted, the gap between it and Tomb Raider is greater than the gap between the gameplay in Tomb Raider and Uncharted.
Yeah. But it's still, I feel like you're doing more of interest. I mean,
but Uncharted has the same problem.
By Uncharted 3, I was kind of like, let's just shimmy over this next 4,000th ledge to get to the next cutscene. Whereas I still enjoy climbing around and doing stuff. And certainly, I also think the puzzle design in Uncharted is kind of terrible. Whereas I enjoy it in Tomb Raider for the most part. Like I don't think Uncharted ever quite nailed down an actual logic to its puzzles to the point that you can tell because like. Basically, if you open the journal in Uncharted, it solves the puzzle for you.
Does,
you know, it's like they don't trust you. Either they don't trust you to understand how everything fits together by looking at it, or they don't trust themselves to communicate that properly to the player. Either way, Tomb Raider wins out in that regard. But I would agree. Like on the whole, I care more about the narrative in Uncharted, and I care more about playing Tomb Raider.
The one thing I would say though, I was talking earlier about with Tomb Raider about how it's asking you to do all these things and not giving you the tools to do it. In Uncharted, they don't ask you to do those things in the first place. Like, they know that everything's on autopilot, and therefore they just put these obstacles in front of you, and they don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, I guess. Let's see, you got one?
Sea Crawl. Matt, have you ever played Path of Exile? I have.
I have not.
I sometimes confuse it with Grim Dawn, but I have played Path of Exile. I like it. That's the, it's like a Diablo kind of style game. Free to play, I think. It's good.
Here's a good one from SJD Swanland. What's up, man? What franchise from any medium that hasn't gotten one would you like to be adapted into a fighting game?
I want a fighting game with all the classic cereal mascots. Tony the Tiger
like
and
Smash Brothers with like
Smash-
just all the old school mascots.
oh no, like Blaze Blue. Like I would do like,
Oh,
like
really?
an anime style. I don't want a Smash Brothers party game thing. I want a real fighter. But I like with like crazy weird crazy animation. So it would be like Tony the Tiger and Lucky the Leprechaun and the Trix Rabbit and all that stuff. But like done up like terrible extreme image comic style. That would be my joke game.
I think I would like a fighting game that has famous athletes from every sport. So Michael Jordan versus Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux versus Dick Butkus. Like, I think that would be awesome.
It's like Shaq Fu.
And they bring all their equipment
yeah.
in, so the fighting styles can change and be different. But I think that would be something really cool. I may be alone on that one.
That is a niche of a niche right
It
there.
is, absolutely. Majora Tom 91, trick question: have you seen a gaming company more backwards than Nintendo?
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely. All
they didn't
Japanese, all
last-
Japanese, by the way.
well, they didn't last as long. I don't know about that. The Nokia N-Gage is one of the dumbest damn things I've ever heard,
Yeah.
and that was not.
I guess I was thinking more
Japanese.
about like game publishers instead of hardware.
Yeah,
platform
but
holders.
hard. But I mean, do you remember? I don't know if you were with us. It was like a week or 2 weeks before the N-Gage came out, and we were in the same building as Nokia at the time at Tech TV, and we were leaving to go to lunch, and there was a guy from Nokia standing outside the Tech TV building on an N-Gage. He was talking on the phone on an N-Gage, side talking.
Right, that's what a taco. That's like taco talking, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was like he held it like he held it like a flat like taco, and you stuck the top of the taco to your head.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. They called it side talking.
Yeah.
Like it was supposed to be cool. And I remember we saw him like, oh, and Adam went over and asked the guy, he's like, hey, how is that? And the guy goes, it's shit, but they make us use them. and we're like, all right.
So Gohan says it's called Yoshi's Crafted World. Thanks for the clarification, Gohan.
Flippin' Island is a way better title.
It is absolutely way better. Here's one from Case Money. A couple years ago, Jeff Keighley briefly did a weekly gaming talk show on YouTube. Do you know what happened to it? Did Jeff comment? It was canceled.
Yeah, like almost everything else people did for YouTube and Facebook. Like
Yeah.
all those initiatives basically went nowhere.
Yeah.
You did one batch of things and they never answered your email again.
It was just like IGN's show on Disney XD.
Yep.
Same thing. It
Or,
they had one season, weren't
the-
renewed.
Or the Attack on Disney XD, or that show I did on Facebook for Facebook
Right.
Watch.
Yep.
Like it's just, you got one thing and it didn't explode immediately, so they just don't.
That's what
do it
people are
anymore.
looking for.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to build anything anymore.
No, it's gotta be an instant thing.
Yeah, we'll put a little bit of money down. If it doesn't explode, see you later. And that's just the way things are now. So, it was canceled. Too big of a budget. Not enough views. It's gone.
Yep. It's a nice try, but
Here's a good one from Vincent. Based on your limited experience so far, would you rather play Octopath or Dragon Quest XI?
Dragon Quest.
Yeah?
Presentation matters to me.
Yeah. And the presentation is
And
far
the
beyond.
the party members like to interact with each other. As a matter of fact, there's even an option in the menu called Party Talk, where you pick it and like the characters who are in the party currently talk to each other about what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you get like little snippets of that in Octopath, but like I just felt like everything felt so weirdly isolated in that it was not worth the trade-off of being able to go wherever you wanted at the beginning. I think they both kind of scratch a similar itch, but I am finding Dragon Quest to be a more pleasant scratch.
We don't usually answer questions or two questions from the same person, but this one's kind of important. Another one from Majora Tom 91. I will be rejoining the $100 Patreon tier for October. Thank you very freaking much. That is amazing. But I was a part of it for the first 5 months of SIFTD's Patreon. Will I still receive an orange shirt? Absolutely you will. And he says I'm a 3XL. Okay, so as soon as I pick up the shirts, I'll make sure to pull one aside for you. And because, again, there aren't that many. 3XLs, we're only getting a couple of each shirt. So, again, If you're on the extreme sizes, you're wearing small, you're wearing 3XL, double XL, you better get on the shirts soon. But I'm glad you told me that. I'll pull out a shirt for you, and I'll set it aside, and I'll make sure that we do not put it on the store. So I got you, bro. GX Gear. Do you think the Fortnite Switch bundle will boost unit sales significantly? They just announced a bundle today for Fortnite.
No, I don't.
Because the game's already free.
Yeah. Like, that's really
How
just...
do you bundle a free game?
Well, it probably comes with, like...
It does.
It comes with, like, currency or some... Yeah, some outfits or something.
How much is 1,000 V-Bucks worth, do you know?
I have no idea.
I don't either. I've never spent a penny on that game. So anyway, do you think it'll boost unit sales significantly with 1,000 fake currency in it?
No. I mean, it's like if you...
I think for the holidays it might.
I
think a lot of parents be stumbling into GameStop, be stumbling into Best Buy, and be like, oh my gosh, the Fortnite Switch? I'm all over that.
But for what? Like, clearly if you're that into it, you already play it. So what?
Because there's just... Oh, you're right. That's a good point.
So what are you playing? I mean, I guess like...
No, I can see a lot of kids wanting to get a Switch this Christmas.
To play it so they don't have to play on the computer or something?
They just don't have something else.
I don't know. It's a good... I mean, if you're sick of the kid hogging your PlayStation 4, I guess you can get the Switch and give it to him. It's there, play that, go away.
I will say this. I do have a lot of my friends who have kids asking me about Switch. They're not asking about PS4. They're not asking about Xbox One. They're asking about Switch, and is Fortnite on it? Because I have a lot of my friends just asking me about Fortnite. Period.
Oh, Fortnite is everywhere. I was at a Bewitched convention and the people were talking about Fortnite, and they're in their 60s. Like, Fortnite has penetrated the cultural zeitgeist in a way that I haven't seen since Minecraft, frankly. Yeah. I mean, it's because everybody's kids and grandkids are that's all they want to do and all they want to talk about and all they want to play. And there were grandparents there talking about how the kids come over to visit and you just like pull out their tablet and stare at Fortnite streams. Because would complain. You know, one of them was like, "Oh, my grandchild complains because my internet isn't good enough to play Fortnite on, so they have to watch streams instead of play it."
Oh man.
So, what did you see? What was it? Statistics for the UK. 5% of divorces this year have cited Fortnite in them.
I did see that. Yeah,
So,
I think that's.
I probably saw that on the SIFTD.
Yeah,
really.
I think that's bullcrap, though.
I don't think so.
Mr. 60. Any franchise you would like to see get the Suda 50? It's Suda 51, not Pseudo.
Yeah, they got him.
SUDA 51. Touch. Any of them. I would like to see any. I'd like to see him tackle just about any perennial franchise. I wouldn't want him to handle the gameplay for it, but
yeah.
But the visuals and the aesthetics of it, absolutely.
I would like to see, like you say, not the gameplay, but like creative director. I would like to see him do Resident Evil.
That would be amazing. Yeah, you just hit it on the head right there, and it's not that far fetched.
No, not at all.
How awesome would that be? Suda 51 doing the new Resident Evil game.
I mean, we kind of got a weird taste of that with Deadly Premonition.
Yeah.
Deadly Premonition is a terrible game, but it's also a great game. It's very hard to describe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And like, if you haven't seen Twin Peaks, it's like 3 times worse. But like, if you have, it's amazing. I don't know. Like, I would like to see him tackle that, and I would like to see him do Gears of War. I'd like to see Suda 51 revamp Gears of War. I don't know why. I just think he would make something horribly nightmarish.
I just think you put him on anything, it's going to transform it.
Yeah.
And there are so many franchises that need to be
Suda 51 Transformers game.
That's,
what would that even
almost
be?
2 in the wheelhouse, I think.
Except like instead of like the transformations are all just horrible body horror.
Right.
like all the transformations
you didn't know they had blood inside them.
Their transformations are against their will. It's just,
lots of people giving me crap over Tom Raiders, I see. I deserve that. I totally get that. Let's see, we'll answer 1 or 2 more. There was one before. Oh, Johnny Hurricane is clarifying. You can control the other characters in Dragon Quest with the tactics options.
Right.
The option is like follow orders or something.
Yeah. It's like I have mine set to like make sure you attack the same thing I just attacked, basically, because otherwise you're just splitting your damage.
Damn Talman. Has Capcom possibly lost faith in the Western studios because of the crazy success of Resident Evil 7 and Monster Hunter World, and the lukewarm reception to Dead Rising 4. So I guess you heard Capcom closed down that studio in Vancouver.
And yesterday there was some talk that they were going to keep the Dead Rising 5 project alive, but apparently that changed.
They killed everything. Yeah, everything's dead. Losing faith in their Western studios. I think Capcom lost faith in that Western studio, and for good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, can you think of anything great that studio's turned out?
Well, they basically only made Dead Rising and the bigs.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. No. I don't think it has any impact on it. And I would also argue that Resident Evil 7 was a smashing success. I don't know about that. I mean, it made money. It was profitable, but it didn't sell like Monster Hunter World. That's for sure.
But very few things do.
Absolutely. All right, we'll answer one more. Do you have one?
Make another Dragon's Dogma, you jerks.
We'll answer one more. Do you have one queued up? I got one here from J. Reed Vic 7. Our last one of the night.
Looked at.
Is the incredibly vague reveal and rollout for Fallout 76 unique for a AAA studio like Bethesda and known IP like Fallout? Is it concerning that there's been so little to show about a service-driven game launching in less than 3 months?
I would say yes and yes.
Absolutely. I think I just talked about this on The Grind. For those of you who don't know who only watch GameFace, The Grind is like it's an opinion-based show where I talk about stuff that we'd never talk about here.
And where Shane dances the whole time.
Yeah.
That's an MTV joke for the
old
people.
Check it out. Yeah. All 3 people got that one, and I'm one of them. Yeah, I just talked about this. It's unprecedented. It's very weird. I think Bethesda is just counting on the cachet of Fallout, that people are going to buy it no matter what. And you know what? My little brother, he's one of them. He'll buy it no matter what.
Yeah, well, he's also in the right place.
Yeah, he lives where it's set. But I mean, he loves Fallout. Like, no matter what, if you tell him, here's a new Fallout, he's going to buy it. That's just the way it is. I think there's a lot of people like him who are going to buy it sight unseen. I don't know. It is very bizarre that we still don't know how the game plays. And
we're like a month and a half out.
And they keep putting out like media for it. And it's just like cartoons. It's like, no, bro, we don't want to see any more cartoons.
Like, there just haven't been... I mean, there was an hour-long developer walkthrough with commentary of, like, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw already. Which, by the way, is completely different from, like, that's great. But I'm like, I was watching that Rebel Galaxy Outlaw video, and I'm like, why don't I know this much about Fallout frickin' 76? Like, it's so weird. Am I just supposed to sort of assume things by the little snippets they put in those trailers? Or like don't you feel like by now we should have had like a live stream or something?
Oh, we should have had a developer.
I mean, I was a little surprised when they didn't have anyone playing it behind closed doors at E3.
Yeah.
I figured, like, because all these little like rooms in their booth, I figure in the rooms you go and see someone play Fallout 70. But no, it was just like photo ops and stuff. It was very weird.
They were just like there's like just props. Where you get photos of yourself, like selfies with the
Fallout props. Yeah.
Dumb. Here's the last quick one. Game Baron Inc. Are you hyped for WWE 2K19? I just called it WWE.
WW.
I think that's how you're supposed to say it.
2WE.
I don't think anyone says WW.
No, well, if you do, you get beat up.
Right.
That's how you spot a mark.
No, I'm not excited.
I think we've learned to not be excited about 2K's WWE games.
If there's a good wrestling game, I'll hear about it and then I'll play it.
Yeah. Fire Pro, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's simpler.
I played it years ago, but
I imported the Saturn version back in the day and it was amazing. Like once you learned all the moves and all the Japanese menus, like I created all these characters and made like my own WWF stuff, and it was great. Like I couldn't read anything, but it was great.
Yeah, I have not cared about wrestling for a long time. As far as the entertainment element of wrestling, and I never watch it on TV. I don't really care about what's going on with it. I think when I was 8, I was really into it.
Yeah,
that was the golden years of the WWF as well, back when I was into it. That was like with Bruno Sammartino and Hulk and...
Well, the 80s era was cool, but like I'm a big fan of the Attitude Era. The late 90s to 2000 turnover.
I played the video games then.
Yeah, those when the video games were the best.
Were really good.
Like the heyday of Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H. I mean, Triple H is still there, but like when Triple H was leading to Generation X and all that. I mean, all that stuff was great.
I never got into it.
When
I just played the
Mankind and when Undertaker wasn't too old to move around, and when Kane was at the top of his game. Like I like that era a lot. I mean, I remember the old 80s, rock and wrestling era. as well. But like, I feel like I think when I was about 22 and 23, when it got big again, I dig that era too. And I still watch some of it. Like I have a friend who's super into it, and he invites everyone over for the pay-per-views. So I moderately keep up. I keep up enough to know that NXT is way better than WWE. NXT is like their minor league.
Oh, they have a minor league now?
NXT is, it's almost like a soap opera. It's like the up and comers training to be.
That's kind of what.
Yeah, but like this is like even more so. It's like they're up and comers and they're training and they're trying to. It's still all the same stuff, but like people can graduate and move up to the big show and kind of thing. But like the NXT guys are just risking tons. I mean, they're doing crazy stuff that the big guys wouldn't do because they got to be noticed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like NXT, some really good stuff comes out of there.
Interesting. I still doubt I'll ever watch it. But
probably not. But I will say this: that channel, that streaming channel they have. There are worse uses of your money.
Interesting.
It's a pretty impressive archive, and there's some pretty good stuff going on. If you're into that. If you're not, don't.
Your mileage will vary.
Your mileage will vary. But like, if you have fond childhood memories of, at the very least, if you have fond childhood memories of the WWF, it's all on there to watch again. The archive is extensive and horrifyingly deep.
Wow. Well, there you go. And that's it for GameFace episode 140. One last reminder, our t-shirts, which we showed off, well, we kind of showed them off at the beginning of the show. If you guys are tuning in late, you have to watch the archive to see that stuff. But they are going on sale next Monday on the merch store, on SIFTD. Actually, one thing I do want to mention is European shipping. Like, I know a lot of you guys in Europe have complained about the shipping costs. We literally worked our butts off to find the cheapest way to ship them to you last time. I just did a check-in in preparation for this, and the cost is even more expensive than it was before. So, if any of you guys in Europe know of a cheaper way for us to get shirts to you guys, we will do it. So, I've done a ton of research. I have honestly not found a cheaper way to get shirts to you guys. But if you guys know of some way, some service, any way to do it, let me know. Come at me on the site, at Shane. You can direct message me. You can put a comment underneath the show on the site. We're trying to find the cheapest way, but the cheapest we could find is a little bit more expensive than they were the last time. So we're trying to do the best we can for you guys. Obviously, we want to be able to get you guys shirts if you want them. So we're doing what we can. If any of you guys know some sneaky way to ship something or whatever, we're down. So just let us know. And again, the shirts will be on sale on Monday.
If anyone wants to come out here and take a box home with them.
Yeah, it might be cheaper to fly here and hang out with me for a day and take a shirt home with you. I'm not even kidding. That's how expensive it is. So anyway, thanks for everybody watching on the stream. You guys have been great. Great questions at the end of the show. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.